So comes the father with his beard and pears, and he goes with him into the tattoo parlor, and he helps him get a tattoo. And the guy sees him, the guy doing the tattoos. And he's halfway through and he stops, turns to the boy he's doing the tattoo on, and he suddenly sees he's teary. And he says to the boy, "If I had a father like yours, I probably would have stayed from."
TheYeshiva.net.
So we're sitting here at the Kesher Nafshi fundraiser. I have the privilege to be sitting with my dear beloved friend and mentor, Rabbi Shimon Russell, who I think I don't have to introduce to the audience, but let's say he's a world-renowned therapist, mentor, educator, and we had the privilege for many years to attend together Kesher Nafshi Shabbatons for parents who are struggling with their children. So now we have the privilege to sit once again and talk about ourselves and our work. We're all work in progress, all of us. I don't think any one of us came down to this world perfect. If we would have come down perfect, we could have stayed up there. And we're all trying to become better people, better Jews, better parents, better teachers, better educators, better principals, better mentors, better human beings, better Ovdei Hashem, especially as teachers and as educators and as parents. So that's what we want to explore.
Absolutely.
None of us have all the answers to all the questions. All of us, I think, could learn more, can grow more, can challenge ourselves more. So I'm going to begin.
My pleasure. Always my pleasure to sit with you.
Thank you, Rabbi Shimon.
These sugyas is just, I only regret that we spend a couple of hours together doing this. Each question, I don't know the questions, but each question is a world. And you could spend hours and hours to do it properly, to get to the depths of it. That's my only regret when I do these interviews, is that, it's like a quick answer. It's not really looking at the sugya deeply, nuanced, different variations of how to answer it, different circumstances. Each question is a course. Nevertheless, we'll do our best, but I hope the audience will understand. I really, truly, I hope they'll understand that in the context, we're giving thought. We're trying to provoke thought and ten l'chachim b'sachamid. Not that what I'm going to say is the definitive answer to any of these questions. Right. That's absurd.
Right. And someone asked me a question. I shared it with my wife. She said it's an obnoxious question. It's an obnoxious question. But I'm going to have the chutzpah to ask it. And the reason is because I thought it would actually help people understand where you're coming from and who you are as a human being. Not just as a professional therapist in Lakewood or now in Yerushalayim, but who you are as a human being, as a husband, as a father, as a mensch, as a human being. Someone asked me this question. I'm a little embarrassed to repeat it.
Feel awkward.
But I feel awkward, yeah. You could see on my body language, which is a big thing in your book. Facial expressions, body language. Your kids don't hear what you say, they watch your body language. Okay, so you could see my body language. So this person said, I don't understand. Why are people going to listen to Rabbi Shimon Russell when he's absolutely a failure? Because as he himself admits, so many of his own children have struggled so much with Yiddishkeit or with other things, which means he was an absolute failure as a parent. Why is he preaching and pontificating about subjects he has failed miserably with? He should just say, I really don't know what I'm doing. Have a good day. I'm moving to New Zealand. This was basically the question, not verbatim. And I thought, let me address it.
You sure did.
And I apologize.
It's no reason to apologize. Any thinking person could have that question, does have that question. Frequently I've been asked that question in one form or another, and it's a good question. I never divulge publicly the details that belong to my children. That's their lives. You'd have to ask them for their perspective. What I, with the rishus of my children, have discussed is where my wife and I began to realize how we didn't understand what was happening. Those with a variety of quite serious learning disabilities. de facto learning disabilities that we failed to grasp and understand. We were busy with medical issues with one of our kids. We just didn't see it. We were busy, like I think most decent, healthy parents, just trying to do the best they could with their kids, keep them in the system, keep them learning, encourage them, inspire them. And slowly but surely we watched like dominoes that what we were doing, which was really conventional, regular chinuch that I absorbed from my rebbeim, that I read in books, that common sense told me, just was failing our kids, wasn't working. The hardest part of it all, yes, was there a time when I viewed myself as a failure? I did some serious soul searching in the very early years, perhaps 25 years ago, when it started happening. And I had the same kasha on myself. I had the same question. And I actually was exploring changing professions at that time. But I got siyata dishmaya and good hadracha from my rebbeim, and eventually emerged over a long period of growth to discover that my children became my greatest mentors, my greatest teachers. And through working through their issues, it became such a gift to my life. It sounds, I'm nervous that it should sound arrogant, because certainly not on the back of my children did I become who I am. But it was through the struggles we went through that I freed myself to do what is so fundamental to chinuch, which is really to look at my children to understand, who are you? Not who do I wish for and want you to be, not who am I going to try and leverage you to be, but who are you? And what happened for me was some amazing experiences as I discovered that as I engaged them for who they were, I became a different person. As we said in the book, before the beginning of the book, there's a statement that the journey of parenting is not just about who your children become, but it's about who you become in the process. It was in that very, very, very early days that I saw the difference, and I changed the beautiful Tsar Gidel Bonim, this line, to Tsar Gidel, Bonim. The Tsar of my Gidel would come through my children. And I abandoned the idea of feeling like a failure. On the contrary, I felt very humbled by it. It was very good for arrogance. That was very good for gaiva, extremely good for that. We did have a lot of pain over this, but my wife and I emerged into a place where we allowed the children to guide us, becoming better people, kinder people, more attuned people. And then Chazal opened up to me, and it was amazing, and I saw it everywhere. As I do it, it's like astonishing almost every time I learn, I see things that I'd never seen before about guiding us in chinuch and understanding our children better. So, we did have the feeling of failure. It did occur. We overcame that. And I'm not proud, of what it is. I'm grateful that the process made me a better person. My Rebbe, I have still such a hard time saying Zeichasad Livracha, but Ramatzio, I miss him so much. But he had said to me when we had our Gezegenzach and I left Eretz Yisrael, he said to me one time, Shimon, he said, take this in the nicest way, but if I was the Eibishter, I would only give you struggling kids, because I trust you to help them.
Wow.
Is that a fair answer?
Very. What do you think was and is, for many of us, the greatest form of resistance to make that shift in consciousness, a shift in consciousness that it seems like you're describing, from when it was your children's problem to when you had to become a different person? Yeah, what's the resistance to that shift?
The resistance,
ego?
I think it's ego and trauma. I think that we're all frail on some level, and when it goes wrong, we know that the world around us, like just the very fact you asked this question, this is 30 years later through our struggles, and the question is still being asked. So unless you've done your ego work, unless you've done your trauma work, then it's going to touch a place inside you, very, very understandably, where it will trigger your own sense of failure and inadequacy. And you're going to start viewing your journey of parenting through your own inadequacy and ego instead of seeing your kids, instead of seeing them. You're really seeing yourself.
How do I know the difference as a parent if I'm responding, disciplining, educating my children from a place of love, or I'm responding to my own unresolved wounds and coping mechanisms? Because my own trauma does not come to me and say, hey, you're Mr. Trauma, you're Mrs. Trauma. Sure. My trauma says, Hashem wants Torah, Messiah, Emunah. What is this, a new liberal, progressive generation of Afkeris? My trauma doesn't call itself trauma. It calls itself religion, Yerushalayim. I don't know what it calls itself. How do I know the difference?
Well, one of the things I asked myself that I ask my clients and people I work with, Crisis-Chinuch parents, when I ask them, so what do you do, to, straighten out your kid when you feel your child is not obeying you? And they tell me their stories, which almost always sound like laced with anger, frustration, disappointment. So the question I ask them, and sometimes it's a devastating question, and it's such a simple question, like, how well is that working for you? How well is that working for you? And most people have no answer because they know it's not.
Wow.
And when you know what you're doing, you're an intelligent man. I mean, we're intelligent people. We're kind, caring, and good people, all of us. We're not talking about monsters here. We're talking about very nice people who are repeating patterns of behavior towards their child that is profoundly not working and pushing your kid away. So we ask ourselves the question, how well is that working for you? And when you realize you're repeating the same stuff again that's not working at all, well, chances are that's coming from the wrong place. It's not about your child. It's coming from about you defending yourself, your ego, who you are. And that's why you repeat the wrong things, even though you're a kind person.
Is there a way for me to catch myself in the moment, like your kid comes into the kitchen 1 a.m, there's nothing to eat in this house? Or, no, I'm not going to shul Shabbos morning. Why should I go to shul? It's boring, and you also don't daven tat. Whatever it is there a way for tati or mommy to catch themselves in the moment as the trigger is developing in my brain before the explosion, before the implosion? What's the mechanism? Can you describe, can you play it out for me?
Yeah,
there's nothing to eat in this house. There's nothing to eat.
If that's the starting point of your journey dealing with your own trauma, you will not do anything good. You will not succeed. But if you can then sit down afterwards when you realize, I just pushed my child away from me. I love this child. I love this child. Even at that worst moment, if I was, God forbid, Basura, Ra, that child died, I'd be utterly devastated. I love my child. So then why am I treating them in a way that pushes them away from me? After the incident, that's when we need to settle down and start getting the advice and guidance that clearly I'm operating with my child from some primitive part of myself that's not the rational, healthy, adult, mature self.
In other words, it's the 2-year-old inside of me talking to the 15-year-old.
Exactly, something like that.
So I'm actually the baby in the process.
In a certain way.
I need a parent.
Yeah, and that's probably what's happening, is the child is making me feel inadequate, and that goes back to the inadequacy I felt as a child that was never resolved. So I rise up angrily. I'm not even angry with my kid. I'm really angry with the people who made me feel that inadequate to begin with, which by now is the world. It's the whole world I'm angry with. I feel, even HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I feel can let me down. It's not attuned. When you know that your response is not attuned to what's happening and not reconnecting you to your child, well, you know something's off. Something is off.
Now my work is internal.
Internal.
I should not be communicating with my child because I'll say the wrong thing.
In the meantime, a person needs help to work out what are those internal truths. In the meantime, there's a very simple technique that everyone would benefit from using. It doesn't fix the problem, but it helps us. Pause, breathe. Pause and breathe. Pause. Don't ever respond in that moment of urgency. If you feel like this profound urgency to react, don't. Pause, breathe. Pause and breathe is not just a stalling tactic. It's actually a way of partially settling your nervous system. So you can bring yourself a little bit back more online and be thoughtful in how you're going to respond. Pause, breathe. I noticed in my own life how over the years of doing this work, I speak slower, I breathe deeper, I speak softer. In the interactive, in a relationship with my children and those who come to me who are in severe trauma states, I slow my speech, I breathe deeper, and then I co-regulate. I help someone else calm down. So in the moment of that interaction, you're not going to fix your own internal triggers. That you need to recognize, okay, it's time. I need to go and fix them. In the meantime, pause and breathe and tune into what they're saying.
So what you're really suggesting is that a major part of education requires self-awareness. Parents are talking about my child, my kid, my boy, my girl. Where's the nachas? Where's the Yer Shemayim? We have such a beautiful house. I have Mesiras Nefesh for my Shabbos table, and they're destroying everything, and they're not interested. And you're saying, stop talking about your children and gain a little self-awareness.
Start looking at yourself, because in truth, we ought to be engaging our children, like all children, without any exception, when they come in the world, need structure, rules, and discipline to thrive. All children. They need structure. Aya pera odom yevolid, right? Like the Alter said, like a wild animal they're born. They need They need us to create structure for them, whether it's bedtime structure or Shabbos table structure or clothing structure or hygiene structure. They need structure to be able to survive. So we can't have a philosophical conversation with a 4-year-old about why I'm imposing structure on you. That's something we mature people, adults, we do for our kids to help them be able to function in a society one day. So we impose structure. How do we do the structure? So we create rules and we communicate the rules. When bedtime is, when this is, why you have to get dressed, not poking your brother in the ear at the table, being polite. We give them rules. The rules are designed to give kids a parameter, boundaries, definition of what is the structure that we feel is healthy for them so they can live productive lives. Comes along discipline when they don't keep the rules, so we offer discipline in order to uphold the rules which were designed to create the structure. There is no tachlis in rules and discipline if not for helping support structure. The purpose is structure. Stop getting angry. Crisis-Chinuch is not a standalone concept in Mishlei. It's a means to an end. The end being structure. That's what we're after, not just running around with a stick. There's some chayv kaddish to have a stick. That's not the point. So if we're doing that, but undermining the administration of the rules and the discipline through getting angry, mad, loud, in this generation, I can't tell you about I wasn't there, so I can't tell you how it worked. But I can tell you in this generation, getting angry, mad, losing one's self-control while trying to do the discipline or the rules whose tachlis is only to enforce the structure, losing control undermines the very message of the rules and discipline and therefore undermines the structure. So then a parent has to stand back and saying, I'm doing rules and discipline in order to create the structure, but in the very delivery of the rules and discipline, I'm undermining their ability to be effective because I'm intimidating and making my kids scared and frightened of me, therefore undermining that the structure's a benefit to them. They just see me as an evil enemy. So that's the point where I have to take a look at myself and say, What is wrong with me that I'm not delivering the rules and the discipline in a way that's utilitarian and will help my children be able to adopt the structure, which is the tachlis of my parenting? Therefore, it must be something about me, so let me get help. Because I would like to learn how to convey the rules and discipline in a way that my child can absorb and receive them, and therefore know that what I'm doing is in their best interest. When I get angry and mad, my child doesn't experience them as in my best interest. They experience an angry father who basically, he's being inconvenienced by my lack of being disciplined. This is about him. It's not about me. It would never occur to me it's about my best interest to grow up as a healthy person.
So then maybe is it possible that for so many of us, our own wounds and coping mechanisms are so repressed, we are so unaware of the patterns we have created to survive, that it's really God's kindness to us to cause our children to challenge us and trigger us and make us meshuggah and overwhelmed, just so that we should be able to actually be healed. We should be able to say, wow, you are triggering me. What is going on in me? And it brings it to the fore, and I can actually deal with it. In other words, our children are really mentoring us, even if it's unintentionally.
Absolutely. It may be that our generation, before Mashiach is coming together, that's exactly that maybe
Rashi says, the children bring back their fathers.
It's through them that somehow, Mashkiach Sali once said, the pasuk in Eicha, Tishtach Pena Avnei Kodesh Barosh Kol Chutzos, and it says, Rashi says they're the bonim. It's talking about Avnei Kodesh. It's obviously talking about the holy stones of the Beis HaMikdash, and yet Rashi says Elu Abonim. So Mashkiach said something amazing. He said the tachlis of Chorban Bayis was to create widespread tshuva for Klal Yisrael, bring us all back to Bara Olam, to realize what we'd lost, this diamond, this treasure, so we would come back and do tshuva. Zog the Mashkiach. Every Peronius HaKlal through history was designed for the same purpose. So whether it was the Spanish Inquisition or Tach V'Tat or the Holocaust in our times, every Peronius HaKlal was designed to bring us back to Bara Olam, to make widespread tshuva. So he said like this, he thinks that Rashi is referring to what will happen at the end of days if we don't listen to all these messages. Elu Habonim, this message will come through our children. Our children will finally awaken. Our most precious possession will wake us up to take a look at ourselves and ask, are we really authentic in our avodas Hashem? Are we really connected with love? Are we modeling a loving relationship with the child so that when a child matriculates, they will transfer the loving relationship with their of to the Av Horachamon, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because we will have instilled a metaphor despite, and when do you do that best? When they defy you. When they defy you, and you don't ignore them, you respond and you teach them how to behave, and you do it in a loving and caring way. You inculcate in your child that my father is an Av Horachamon, so when they matriculate, they can transfer that experience to Bara Olam, which I think is probably the tachlis of the whole thing on a deeper level.
So, if I am regulated, I'm regulated. A mother, a father, they're regulated in their brain, in their system, their nervous system, as you say. What does chinuch look like versus if I'm dysregulated? Can you give me the two conversations? I'm dysregulated. My child is not behaving. Maybe he's hitting his brothers. Maybe he's maybe he's older and he's doing things very inappropriate, maybe embarrassing for me.
Sure.
But I'm regulated versus when I'm dysregulated. Or to put it differently, what is my response when I'm attuned to actual chinuch? And what is my response when it's not about chinuch? It's just about my own survival.
Yeah, it plays out very simply. We want, ideally, in the yesodus of chinuch, that my child should experience, I'm not saying never necessarily intellectually experience, because they're little, but their nervous system, their body, their internal mechanism should experience that which I am controlling, directing, creating gvulot, rules, structure, boundaries on them. In other words, interfering with their ability to have fun sometimes or stay up, whatever they're doing. That which I'm doing, interfering with their desire, is only leto'elis for them. It's not that I'm parenting out of convenience. I'm parenting out of fear. I'm parenting out of friendship. I'm parenting because I'm afraid of what the neighbors are going to say about me. That my child experiences my parenting, chinuch, what I'm doing for them, is kol kulai about their development and success in this world. When I lose myself in the process, I'm really reflecting back to my child that what I'm trying to stop you doing is because you're hurting me. You're offending me. You're upsetting me. It isn't about, I want you to be a successful human being and therefore I'm trying to help you. And that's why I'm standing up to you and saying no, is because I want you to be accomplished and successful and to have a wonderful life. We sacrifice that when I lose myself and I parent out of my own fear, anxiety, or shame. So then the child doesn't experience that. And what we're actually conditioning them to believe is that I can't trust my parent, that my parent is only interested in themselves. This is about them, which creates profound insecurity, instability inside the child's world. A child needs to know that what my parent is trying to do for me, even when they say no, in fact, specifically when they say no, is actually toilets for me. They will get that from the smile on my face. They will get that from my relaxed posture. They'll get that from me saying to them, look, if you want to take the ice pop, I'm a 5-year-old, and I'm going to take an ice pop. You say, no, please don't. We're having supper now. And the kid says, I don't care, I need one. And you say to the child, I understand you need a shefela, but after supper, I don't want you to lose your appetite. I want you to have a good supper. I'm taking one. And then you look at the child and you say, well, go ahead. I'm not stopping you. And they say, well, can I take it? I said, I told you not to. But then you just said, I didn't say, I said, I'm not going to stop you taking it. If you want to take it, take it. And then here's a consequence. This is what's going to happen. If you take it, you're going to go to bed. You're going to go to bed right after supper immediately. No playing. So that's up to you. But I'm not going to stop you taking it. And they look at you like, I'm taking it. I'm taking it. You say, I know. And then you go to bed after supper. But you stay completely calm. And you don't run in front of the fridge or freezer and block them, intimidated by this 5-year-old. You stand there and padlock your fridge and tie it up to stop them taking it. You say, go ahead, I'm not stopping you.
Unless they're triggering the 5-year-old in you who felt unsafe.
I will be in front of that
fridge. You will go to that refrigerator, you will finally take revenge against
there you go.
The adult who harassed you at the age of 5.
My child will never know that I'm trying to do this for you. This is about you, not me.
He'll just see a parent out of whack.
Out of whack, yeah, exactly. And he'll never get the message that I need to self-discipline. This is good for me. My father's actually, it may be confusing. Again, there's not an intellectual thought in a 5-year-old, but it's an experiential. That's they're experiencing by me staying calm and saying, look, I'm telling you not to, but I'm also telling you I'm not going to stop you. But if you take it, you go straight to bed after supper. These are your choices.
Rabbi Shimon, I think this is what makes it difficult for many people, possibly. And that is the father and mother feel that they're just following the Shulchan Aruch. They're following the Torah. They're following the Ratzon Hashem. By a Shabbos table, you say a Dvar Torah. I'm paying tuition so that you should learn something in yeshiva. Tznius is something we have done for thousands of years. A Yamelke is Yir Shemayim. Answering Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah or Baruch Hu is sacred, etc., etc., etc. You're telling me, don't get angry, look at yourself. You have trauma from your parents, from your Zaydas, from your Babas, from the Nachash HaKadmaini. All very good. Psychobabble. I need to educate my kid. He is betraying Shulchan Aruch. This is not personal. I'm not fighting for money or covet here. I'm fighting to create ehrliche Yiddische Deirus. Now you're hacking with me my coping mechanisms, my trauma. I never saw in Shulchan Aruch the word trauma. Where did you invent this from?
Okay, so this is already a workshop. This question is a workshop. If you were to ask me, if I had like 2-3 minutes to make one statement, to parents and mechanchim from something I've learned about life that I kind of wish I'd known then. So here's what I would say, and then we'll come to the answer. So we all know there's a mitzvah in the Torah, period, have children. There's a mitzvah, beautiful mitzvah. We should have children. A chelik of that mitzvah is actually a mitzvah called L'Shevis Yitzhara. L'Soy bara L'Shevis Yitzhara, Pasuk in Shayo, which says that Eibishter wanted to fill the world with people. He wanted the world to be full of a yishuv of people. So what is that mitzvah? So I don't want to go into the details now, it's Alam Dishashir, but what it means to me, and I've discussed this with various Gedolei Yisrael, it means to me that Eibishter wanted a world full of healthy people. That means like this: we should try and bring up our children to be healthy in body and mind, to be happy, to be capable of self-love, and capable of loving others. That's our goal. That's what we're meant to be doing. That's the mitzvah l'shavis yitzhara. Bring up healthy people. People who can't be part of the yishuv. That's not what the Eibishter wanted. He wanted a brayas for it and nish for now. At the same time, we have a chayv kaddish in Shulchan Aruch, or chinuch rabbanim. We have to mechanech our kids to mitzvahs. All the beautiful things you said so eloquently a few minutes ago. We have a chiyuv as parents to teach our children. We madrich them in mitzvahs. Right, exactly. Now here's where I wish I'd known this, what I'm about to say. If there was one regret I have as a father, I didn't know this. The simplicity of what I'm about to say is going to be jarring to hear it at first. And I would only say if people are listening, if it's confusing what I'm about to say, the confusion is because we didn't have time to tease it out, not because it's be'etzem confusing, it's because we didn't have time to play. It's a novel idea, and there's no time to really tease it out. But here's the question I ask people. You have a dual mitzvah as a parent, to bring up a healthy child, person capable of living with the yishuv. I repeat, healthy in body and mind, happy, capable of self-love and loving others. That's our chayv kaddish as parents. At the same time, we have a chayv kaddish from Shulchan Aruch to bring up children in the derech ha-Torah, Torah mitzvahs. Here's the shaila, talking about pre-bar mitzvah, little kids especially. What happens was that when, on the occasion, there seems to be a conflict between those two, what do? Which takes precedence? There's a conflict. You say to your kid comes down with no tzitzis, and you say to your child, Shefli, did you forget your tzitzis? And your child says, he's 6 years old, and he says, I hate my tzitzis. There's a conflict, right? Classic, easy thing that could happen. Doesn't have his yarmulke, she doesn't wear her tights, something's off. And now there seems to be a conflict between
my child
and chinuch to mitzvahs. So, versteht ihr, which comes first? Which is more important? If you can't do both at that moment, if you're trying to do both, which takes precedence? And the answer is l'shevis yitzhara, that we have to bring up healthy children, and therefore never compromise with a young child, ever compromise l'shevis yitzhara for the sake of installing a mitzvah. So if I know, for example, there's a small group of kids who could handle Crisis-Chinuch b'nai, they can handle a tough parent who sends them back upstairs, and it won't interfere with their development as a healthy person, then by all means send them upstairs and give them the stern look, the angry look, if that floats your boat, and get them to where the sitz is, and everything's good, as long as it doesn't shter l'shevis yitzhara. But if God forbid it shtes l'shevis yitzhara, and they come down and
meaning you're wounding your child,
you're wounding your child in that process.
You're causing them disconnect or feel unsafe.
You're not teaching them self-love or loving others. You're not teaching them how to be happy. If you're interfering with the development of Shevis Yisrael, then you remind them once and you let it go at the moment. Let it go. And later on, you sit down with them in a way that does not interfere with the Shevis Yisrael, and you discuss the mitzvah, what's wrong with the tzitzis. And you know what you find out? You find out he's still wearing Mickey Mouse tzitzis. His parents didn't upgrade him to a nice pair of tzitzis, and the kids are making fun of him. Or someone chewed off half his tzitzis, and the boy next door is making fun of him. Who knows? But you sit down with him respectfully and lovingly, and you find out what's the problem here. But that's within the confines of L'Shevis Yisara. Now, if you've done your personal work, it's very possible that at that moment when there's a contradiction, you can uphold L'Shevis Yisara beautifully because you did your personal work. But if you haven't done your personal work, chances are, in your zeal, which is totally understandable, to fulfill the mitzvahs chinuch and make my child listen to that Yehei Shmei Rabbah, get to shul on time, put his finger and daven properly. In my zeal to do that, I compromised, not by deliberate, it wasn't thoughtful, but by accident I compromised. The Shevis Yisrael bring up a healthy person. Ultimately, I mazik my child. What's fascinating is that when we put the doggish on the Shevis Yisrael, remember, they're meant to go side by side in normal chinuch. It's only when they're in conflict that we err on the side of always maintaining Shevis Yisara. What parents report, what we discovered and everyone sees, and I just wish I'd known this earlier, is that you create a clay kibble for mitzvahs. That's what happens. When the Shevis Yisara is done properly, you create the clay kibble. So even if they're not ready now, they will be ready soon. I asked many Gedol Yisrael, how many times who had Gedolim for fathers, how many times did your father, like mention to you, wash Negelvas in the morning, put on your tzitzis? How many times? Once. They reminded us once, they left it alone. There was none of this yelling and screaming.
So you're saying, on the contrary, if you really care about Torah and mitzvahs,
thank you.
You're saying something much deeper. You're not just saying health before religion.
No.
Healthy, happy, religious. You're saying something much deeper. If you want religion to be authentic,
that's right.
If you want it to permeate, to penetrate,
that's right.
To have longevity, rather than just superimposed, repressive, that they may abandon when they're older or just be angry, this is a prerequisite.
It's a prerequisite, exactly.
If not, you're destroying. V'chai bahem v'lo sheyamos bahem. That's what you're saying.
I think it's
probably... If Yiddishkeit is going to destroy the child, it's not Yiddishkeit. You're saying it's going to be a fake Yiddishkeit.
It's not Yiddishkeit.
It's going to be just out of dread and
of course.
and stress.
Of course. And it's external.
It's all external.
It's not deeply felt inside, which is what we see.
So it's not that emotional health was victorious over Yiddishkeit. That is what Yiddishkeit needs. It needs people. It needs souls. It needs a healthy brain.
Exactly. And this is, to me, it was the most profound awareness that came to me and our journey through our parenting. And in fact, what's amazing is, let's go back to Crisis-Chinuch for just a brief moment. The entire model of Crisis-Chinuch that I've been trying to teach in the world is about repairing the damaged attachment that happened because, for whatever, I'm not blaming anyone, I did the same mistake. But not doing the Shevis Yitzara properly created a child who was not capable of feeling good about themselves and self-love and loving others. The Crisis-Chinuch approach is really what we're doing is repairing the damage, upholding the Shevis Yitzara, creating a healthy relationship.
A healthy clay kibble.
A healthy clay kibble. And what most kids will do with that, if we walk away from religion for the time being, with Crisis-Chinuch, with children who are seriously in crisis, we walk away from that. But instead we focus on repairing the damaged attachments, relationships, love, creating a healthy person. Ruba de Ruba, on their own, they start exploring religion. They go back to it and they want it back in their lives.
You're saying because if Torah and mitzvahs is really the true path and the healthy path to life, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, that's what Hashem's blueprint is.
Correct.
So if you really create healthy children,
they naturally
want to be healthy people.
That's right. That's right. That's right. It was so profound to me where I saw this.
So you're saying that we should actually trust Yiddishkeit more. We should trust God's system a little more.
100%.
That if we have healthy and happy children, they want to live the best lives possible.
And if they
don't be so insecure about Judaism.
And when they come back, like the Gemara and Rashi Nida Tesayino Abes, Right? Kol b'dei Shemaim chutz mi'yer Shemaim. Everyone knows the Gemara. V'sag Rashi. It's so amazing to me. People don't see it. Rashi sagt something so profound, right? What's kol b'dei Shemaim? Kol midaisav v'karaisav shel Adam boin lo b'gzeres melech. That means my child has these struggles. Midaisav. Midaisav. They have character, a certain character. This, we wish we'd know it when they're born, but we didn't. And Karaisov, the next door neighbor, the friend, the kid that bullied them, all the events that happened in their lives is how they reach their tikkun. That's the Ari Kaddish says. They go through their specific journey, and that's how they reach their tikkun. If we would see that and realize my job is to the privilege I have as your father is to help you recognize these challenges and struggles that Kaddish Baruch Hu gave you, and I'm going to help you with it. I'm going to help you be the best you can be by being a healthy person.
So when the Gemara says, Chalal of Shabbos achas kadesh yishmer Shabbos is harbe, which is why every Hatzalah call goes out on Shabbos, you're essentially saying all of life is that way.
Look, I leave that.
If you're going to fight about this Shabbos, you're going to take him away from all the other Shabbos.
It's in a public setting, it's dangerous for me to, because the lamdonim, will misinterpret what you just said. But conceptually, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I meant conceptually.
Conceptually, not specifically, but conceptually, yeah, absolutely. 100% conceptually. That's the concept. Creating healthy people is the greatest possible way for Kiyum of Torah mitzvahs is pashut to me. Is pashut. The authentic Torah mitzvahs is incorporated internally and meaningfully in healthy people.
So now I understand. There's a medrash Tana de Eliyahu Rabba Perik Yudalad, which is a medrash from Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi said, a man asked me, he says, there's two things that I love, and I know they both precede the universe. Torah v'Yisrael. Ve'eni yedeya ezer koidem. I love them both. So Eliyahu Hanavi said, the world says that Torah kadma, v'ani oimer, Yisrael kadma l'Torah.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is Eliyahu Hanavi's,
I think so.
Ani oimer Yisrael kadma l'Torah.
I think so. The work we do, I go back to what we wrote in the book. The journey of parenting is not just about who your children become, but about who you become in the process. When we see this simple truth, when I free myself to allow my children to refine me, to help me observe my own weaknesses, impediments, flaws, what I came back for, so they can help me orient towards my own repair and therefore my own fulfillment of my journey in this world. And then everyone wins. Everyone's a winner.
But it's very hard for many of us to let go of the expectations, the shame, and the ego, especially that all three are camouflaged as halacha, emunah, and Torah. Yeah, we don't call it ego, shame, expectations. We call it God's expectations.
Sure. What's so fascinating about that is that, in the yeshivish world, the Hasidish world, we're all so keen on philosophically working on ourselves. The philosophy of being Ovdei Hashem by working on our midas, our ben adam lechavero, working on who I am as a person. Like midas, working on midas, that's the mitzvah ben adam la'atzmai. To work on that is the yesod, the foundation, shari avoda, we know that's the foundation for it all. That's why it's not included in Targum mitzvahs, because that's the foundation for the whole Targum mitzvahs. And we give, let me say it.
Take a deep breath.
Breathe, pause and breathe. I think we all believe this. Intellectually, I believe the Torah world would uphold and believe what I just said is the Ika Ikarim of all of Avodas Hashem. Like the Gaon says, the Shklava says in the introduction, into Evan Shlema, that's the tachlis of person in this world is Tikkun HaMidas. Right, that's the tachlis. I think we all know
to work on ourselves
philosophically, but guess what? The greatest vehicle we ever have in our lives for working on our midas is our relationship with our children and our spouse. Those two are the greatest vehicles. Isn't it bizarre and odd that we don't recognize that we'd rather learn Sfarim on Tikkun Amidus than actually go home to the children and the spouse and do it? That's bizarre.
So you're saying when my child triggers me at the Shabbos table or the dinner table at any point of the day, that's actually the greatest opportunity for me to fulfill the mission for which I came down to
The
the world.
entire purpose of this world could be played out at
So
your
I should
Shabbos
cherish the
table.
opportunity to go inward
Absolutely.
and heal myself
Absolutely.
and learn how to respond from a
It
place
is-
of love.
It's what I call an MDO, a Midas development opportunity. The child is stressing you at the table. I'm going to bring the best of who I am to that moment in order to help my child become a better person by me embodying the truths and beliefs of being an El Chayid, a Ben Torah, while I deal with it. That's my goal. You know, we're not perfect people, but that's the goal. It has to be that I recognize that the struggles with my children and my spouse are more valuable to me than learning the Sfarim about working on myself, but not actually taking it home and engaging the children and doing it. Like, again, this is topsy-turvy world, that we would engage ourselves quicker in the pursuit of analysis of the Sfarim HaKadosh,
Shari Tshuva, Arches Tzadikim, Nefesh HaChaim, Mesilas Yesharim,
which
everything.
we'll do that more passionately than doing the actual work those Sfarim are telling us to do at the Shabbos table or with our spouse.
So you're saying many of us are like doctors, that when we're called for an emergency to save somebody, we say, no, I'm busy reading medical textbooks.
Yes.
I don't have time to go save anybody.
Well, again, I hate to be or sound cynical. You know, I want to be respectful. No one does any of this purposely.
Of course.
I think that we get lost. We get taken up in the moment. But if we would just sit, like again, it goes back to that question of, so how well is this working for you? How well is it working?
You're saying the proof is in the pudding. If your children are happy, healthy, passionate, and enthusiastic, you're doing the right thing. If they're miserable and they hate your guts and they hate Judaism,
Something's wrong.
it's time to start asking deeper questions.
And again, that's not to blame the parents, because my thesis aligns with the idea that more or less good enough parenting will create more or less good enough children who will become more or less good enough adults, who will marry more or less good enough adults and have more or less good enough children. That's the process. However, if trauma strikes, and we know, that today's not the time for us again to review all the different aspects of trauma, but when trauma strikes, it's become clearer and clearer to me that more or less good enough parenting wasn't enough. Wasn't enough. So if you have your own childhood trauma, and then trauma strikes your kid, more or less good enough parenting doesn't work. It won't be strong enough. That's what we do at Kesher Nafshi. What people report back to me is they've discovered that the primary doggish, well, that's really what, people ask me, what is Crisis-Chinuch? What does it mean? Can I, if you don't mind, so Crisis-Chinuch, we moved away from the chinuch, the doggish being on the kid. The first doggish is on me. In Crisis-Chinuch, it's the first doggish is how can I recreate healthy attachment with my child so my child will be safe, secure, seen, and soothed by me prior to me doing any interventions to try and facilitate my child's behavior to change. The first doggish is not the child. The first doggish is me as a person. Well, isn't that syntonic with everything about Judaism, everything about Yadus, everything about Dov Kabbai, the being an Eved Hashem? Doesn't that start with me working on me and my midas So therefore, yes, isn't the greatest gift my children?
Ask not what your children can do for you. Ask what you can do for your children.
Yes, well, in a way, it's that we have this symbiosis, that we sit back and realize that why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu put these children in my family? You know, I went on a journey 20 years ago, 25 years ago, where I asked this question. Like, it wasn't conceivable to me that in the secular metaphor of the stork coming with the baby dropping down, but when HaKadosh Baruch Hu shipped the neshama, you know, husband and wife create a guf. They create a guf. They don't create a neshama. And the Eibishter, in his infinite wisdom, chooses where to put the neshama in which guf. This is pasha to me in Hashkafas, Torah, and Yadus, Eiskahal. So the question I ask myself is, if we're so messed up as parents, why did the Eibishter put that neshama there? Like, duh. If I'm so
There was
bad,
nobody else in Lakewood he could have found?
next door creating a goof that night he could have found? Nobody else? Only the Russells. That doesn't make sense.
The messed up Russells.
Yeah, exactly. So it occurred to me, and I went on a very deep journey. You know, my learning changed, my Torah changed, my relationship to Yadus and Hashem changed. It all changed when I began to see Pnimius Torah. And it was so freeing for me. Because when I accepted, okay, the Eibishter gave me this child. So this child is meant to be exposed to those siblings. Okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's take a deep breath. Aha. The sibling got traumatized. Before we ever knew, this child came in. He was to put that in the neshama. What, he didn't know that they were going to be exposed to a sibling who was traumatized? Apparently he didn't know, right? That's kfira. So why did he put that child there? This simple philosophical question drove me crazy for years. I took the question to Gedolim and to Rebbes and Rabbanim, and everyone gave me the same answer. It has to be that the Eibishter wanted that child to be exposed to this child. So why? Well, apparently, their reaction to that child was going to help them engage the specific work they need to do to heal their klipas that they came back to heal in this world. And it's my gift as a parent to help them do it. This wasn't Rachmanas Neber, you had that sibling. It had to be precise. Okay, so let's be mature. How do we do that? How do we help them?
It's lechatchila, not b'di'evet.
Not at all.
This wasn't a b'di'evet
Not
mistake.
at all. No. And if
A
I
random
look
mutation.
Right. I said, look, the bracha, you know, I joke, and the Olam should take this, you know, my closest Yedidim, when we were in those childbearing, you know, the years where we had our children, now it's, you know, the grandchildren obviously, but in those years, and I would frequently go to Shalom Zachas of friends, Yedidim, and Kiddush, you know, you give them the regular brachas, Lachnisa, Bissa, Shlam, Ravino, etc.
Asach nachas.
Asach Nachas, all the right brachas. And then I would pull them aside, only my closest Yedidim. And I would say to them, listen, Yankel, whoever it was, I have another bracha for you. They say, okay. I say, Zol Eibishter helfen, that as soon as possible, that you and your Rebbe, you should work out what's wrong with your baby. Why they came back, what the flaws are they brought back. Find out what's wrong with them, and patiently and lovingly help them.
And they thought you were crazy.
It's what we're here for.
They thought you were cursing them.
No, my friends understood me well. It's what we're here for. And we all think we got this perfect child. It never dawned on us that of course they came back with imperfections. Kol midosav v'karosav, and they're going to have karosav is that sibling who was traumatized, who's acting out in the home and driving everyone crazy, and they're born into such a home. That's Ratzon Abayra. That's not an accident. Can we please embrace that? And can we please focus on what can I do to help you? How can I help you through this? Because I can't stop
You
this
started to
torture.
cry when you said those words, that they didn't come down perfect, and we need to be here for them. What triggered that emotion? Was it just the thought of your own children?
No, it's the thought of Klal Yisrael's children. It's like these precious neshamas come back. You know, we daven Elokai neshamas shenasata b'Torah. They're pure tahor neshamas, but they're malaklipas. Especially now at the end of days with Gugulim, they're all malaklipas. Rabbeinu Shalom, we expect them to be perfect. What are we saying?
They're dealing with a lot.
They're dealing with a lot. They have struggles.
They have to fix 5,000 years of history for Mashiach. They got to fix it all.
and we're privileged in this generation that we're getting these neshamas. Can't we reorient ourselves to see they're not a burden to our lives, but they're the gift of our lives? Can we not communicate to them, Shafali, you did nothing wrong. You have ADD, you have an impulse disorder. You're not going to make it very well in our system. That's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Can we start with that?
And you don't have to be Rabbi Akiva Eiger.
No, you don't. You have to be you. So Psikta on this week's Parsha Truma, we just learned it. The Moshe Rabbeinu, the Psikta says it. The Kodesh, he said, Asuli mikdash v'shechati b'soichem. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, we're going to make for the Rebbeinu Shalom. He fills the whole world. We should make it. Zog the Psikta. No, he said to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was nizdaza. How are we going to do that? And the Rebbeinu Shalom said, no. Lo lefi koichi, I'm asking you. Lefi koicham. I'm asking you for your koiches. Lo lefi koichi. He goes on to say when he said, bring in the kesef and the zav. And Moshe Rabbeinu was nizdaz and said, you own all the kesef and zav. What are we going to bring to you? And the Eibishter said, no. Lo lefi koichi. Lefi koicham. Whatever you can bring. A machzah shekel. A little tiny thing. Bring something. Can we not look at our kids and realize what they're carrying back into this world? Who knows? So if we had an X-ray when they were born, and we could, like, spiritually, all the Mekubalim would come back from Friedrich and they would look at this child as it's born and put a tag and tell us exactly was tutzuchto. We'd all go out of our minds. But that's our gift. So yeah, we have to overcome who we are to see that. And we have to gift our children. And that doesn't mean being weak and lame. On the contrary, that's my chayv kadosh, to see those struggles and help him. And that needs structure, and it needs rules, and it needs discipline. It needs our authority. It needs us setting the agenda of our homes. It needs us teaching them about Torah mitzvahs, but all under the framework of the Shevis Yitzhara.
From a place of health.
Of health. I want a healthy person. Yeah, Vada, we have to be. And sometimes we have to be tough and strong. But you can be tough and strong with kindness. You could say no to your child. The Shefala, the answer is no. And they say, Tati, I hate you. And you look at your child and you say, that must be hard for you.
For this, you really have to be regulated.
Yes.
Your child telling you, I hate you. You're the worst Tati who ever lived. I wish I can have somebody else's Tati.
I remember the joy and emotion of reaching the place in life where I was able to look at my child, 6, 7-year-old, and say to them, that must be so hard for you.
And you were internally calm. That's the key.
Yeah.
Your child knows if you're internally calm.
Because I don't think my kid hated me. I think my kid was manipulating me and trying to get their way. And it was for me to teach them in a healthy way, Shefala, this is not about, you hating me and you think, I'm going to earn your love now by giving in. The answer is no. And no, I don't have to tell them, that's Shalom Pitayr. Shalom Pitayr, you can't say that to your father. That's also.
You don't speak like this to your father.
You don't speak like this. Chayv Misa. Chayv Misa, speak like this. Guess what happens when you do it the other way? Later on, your kid comes in, sorry, Daddy. And they want a hug and a kiss, and I'm so sorry. And you say, okay, Shefala, you didn't mean it in the first place. You didn't mean it in the first place.
Why does a father say, you're not allowed to speak like this to me? It's aseres hadibros. You know, if you curse your father, mais yumas.
No, I don't know.
Why does a father do that? What triggered me?
That's your own internal stuff, because you got these two mitzvahs.
I feel worthless, basically, and you triggered
it. Place. No, it's coming from a good place. A father, he's got this chayv of teaching mitzvahs, Torah mitzvahs. It's chinuch. I got to teach him. It's like a father once said to me, and he meant well. It was a Crisis-Chinuch conference, and he meant well. He'd heard a whole Shabbos of all this kind of raid, and I think it was very, very hard for him to be the first time exposed to it. And on a Motzi Shabbos panel, he asked a very good question, and I was glad he asked it, because there was polite clapping around the room, which meant that other people were feeling the same way, and I was gratefully asked. But the question he asked was, I don't get all this. You know, it doesn't make any sense to me. You know, a kid has to be mechabed his parents. It's a chiyuv in the Torah. You know, I understand all this. We have to be mechabed them, they have to be mechabed us. Like, help me out here. And people clapped. I was grateful. So I said to him like this, let me ask you a question. Where is the sugya of parenting in the Torah? We've got everything. Shulchan Aruch covers everything. Everything, you name it, we got it. Where's parenting? Harut. Where is it? It's not there. So I have a teretz klali, I have a teretz prati. Teretz klali is the whole Torah's parenting. We have to be bonim atem Hashem lakeichem. The whole Torah is parenting. So that's a teretz klali. I have a teretz prati. I said to him, I'll tell you exactly where the sugya of parenting is in the Torah. It's the fifth of the aseres hadibros. So he looked at me. This is right. That's the sugya of parenting. He didn't understand. So I said, let me see. I'll tell you how I feel. Chinuch sagt that the tam of kibbud avayim is a kos right? He said, yeah, father, who's the kos hatov? And he got off again. Who's the kos hatov? I said, great, excellent. Who's the kos hatov? So I'll tell you what the Torah is telling us. That we have to teach our children kibbud avayim in a za'ofen, that when they get older, they'll have a kos hatov to us. Do you think that'll work if you hit them and whack them with a hammer all the time and yell at them? How will your children grow up to have a kos hatov to you, to be mekayim kibbud avayim because of a kos hatov to you, if you didn't do l'shavas yitzhar? If you put everything in front of it, if you didn't do your own work. The sugya of parenting is kibbud avayim. We have to do parenting in a way that when our kids go up, al sakar satayv, they'll be mechabed us. They'll be so grateful to us. He rather loved the teretz, I have to tell you. But I think it's a teretz amiti. We have to be disciplined, we have to be structured, there are rules, there's Torah, there's halacha. Do it all in a way that when your kids experience it at the time, they're experiencing it not intellectually, pre-intellectual. They're experiencing it as, my father's doing this for me. This is in my best interest. So that therefore, when they matriculate and become older, they're moleh hakaras hatov for what my father gave me.
It's very popular today for 30, 40, 50-year-old mothers and maybe grandmothers to turn to their mother, who's 70, 80, 85, or father, and say, you know, you really did not know how to be good parents. You guys were, which they wouldn't even conceive in their nightmares to say to the previous generation. Sure. But today, you don't know what it means to be a parent. You didn't know how to deal with us. And very often parents, Zaydis already, Babas, Eltas, they get very defensive. We had Mr. Nefesh. We had not a penny to our name. I gave you everything. This is your ungratefulness, the chutzpah. And then I get an email that today's generation. So how should they respond? How should the 65 or 75-year-old mother who's now being accused of emotional neglect, indifference, stupidity, ignorance, complete no understanding of what chinuch is, and now her daughter, who is struggling with her own kids, is saying this to her mother, and the mother gets very defensive.
I don't blame her. I don't think there's anything therapeutic to be achieved by lashing out against one's parents. You know, never for the sake, for the grace of God go I. If I had been born in that generation, I wonder what I would have been like. So lashing out and blaming, I've never seen a to'eles. I do see a to'eles in grasping my internal pain and hurt in a therapeutic setting. You know, there's ways in therapy, excellent ways of dealing with that and overcoming it. So I'd like to shift, you know, that the model, that's not therapeutic, but it is therapeutic to acknowledge my pain and anger and hurt in a therapeutic environment, in a therapeutic process to get rid of it. But when a parent hears it, I can tell you what I did with my kids. I apologized. I evoked their pain, and I apologized. I went into therapy with them, those who wished, and said, I was not there for you. I did not see your suffering, and I take responsibility. And all that happened was my kids being mechabed me more and loving me more. It never hurt, ever.
So you had to be very introspective.
Well, I wasn't there at the beginning, but I understood. I did not see what they were hurting with. I thought I was doing a great job. Actually, people in the early days, they thought the Russells had a beautiful home. No, they did. People said it. It's very interesting. They used to think we were like nice people. You know, I asked my wife many times, are we nice? I think we are, no? So it seemed to me we're good people and we're nice people. But
So you're saying when parents can acknowledge the pain of their children
rather than become
A
defensive.
Kodesh Baruch Hu made this world in a way that the nature, the teva, ingrained, imprinted in the neshama of a child is to love and respect and want that love from their parents. Hashem made the world that way. We all know as we get older, if you still have older parents, you know you're dying for them to say, I'm proud of you. Right? You're just dying. Everyone's dying for it. Even you're 60 years old and they're 90 and you just want to hear it. Hashem made it that way. If, again, this can't be an answer for all situations and all people and all circumstances. But if parents are able to do the work on themselves, to simply acknowledge to their children, I didn't see, I didn't know, and I hurt you. And I would love to know, and I want to hear, and I'm willing to do the work on myself to see if I can find a way that this doesn't happen again. It is the nature of a child to crave that relationship and want to be Michael and want to let go and want to re-embrace that relationship. I think that many times parents who haven't done the work on themselves end up in a headspace where, no, kibbud av v'em is kids respecting us. It's not the other way around. And we all know it's not true, but they haven't done the work yet. And that may not even be their fault.
So I guess they make their children feel there's nobody to talk to. I can't have a real connection with my parents.
Correct.
I just have to placate them and say the right thing.
But if we really dig deep, and nicht einmal, you understand, you may have to do it many times. But if you're committed, I don't care if it takes me 10 years. I literally don't care if for 10 years one of my kids is going to be mad with me and hurt me and whatever. You know, that may have happened. And okay, so what? This world is this world is chalaim, yachasit, olam haba. So what? Who cares if it took me 10 years? Let me do the work. Let me take it on the chin. And let me apologize, not pathetically, not like I'm a nebuch and a bad person. I'm not a bad person. I'm a good person. But at the same time as being a good person, I grew up with certain traumas. I grew up with parents who were traumatized. I had certain blank spots. I was blinkered. It wasn't deliberate. I didn't go to the store and buy those blinkers. I had them and I didn't see you. And because I didn't see you, I hurt you. You know, I've yet to find a child. I've done this in my office so many times I can't even tell you. It's from the greatest work I've ever done is to watch the repair between children, adult children, and their parents. I cry with them when they cry. We all cry in the room because it is such the nature that Hashem put in a child to want to respect the parents and love them and want to be Michael. All it needs is that true, humble, authentic, vulnerable honesty. And when it happens, magic can happen.
So you mentioned before something very powerful that I just want to zoom into. You said what Pnimius HaTorah gave you was that shift of paradigm, that paradigm shift, where instead of seeing it just as a given, these are the kids and they're pretty rotten and spoiled and filling my life with trouble, you actually redefined yourself as an Eved Hashem.
Correct.
I work for Hashem.
Right.
Hashem put these souls into our home. This is their journey. And my role is to show up with humility and love.
That was exactly what happened. I realized these are his children, not mine.
It's not personal.
It's not personal. He gave me these kids, but they were his. These neshamas are his. They're not mine. We don't own the neshamas of our children. They're his. And my job is to show up in a compassionate, authentic, loving, caring way with boundaries, structure, discipline, the stuff kids need to thrive in life, but show up that way to do his job. In fact, I remember specifically on a couple of occasions davening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where I gave up ownership back to him of some of my children and said, these are yours more than they're mine. Please help me do the job for you. Help me do the job for you.
That allowed you to show up rather than become enmeshed
Correct.
with the problems and the crises.
Yeah, I let go of owning them. I let go of viewing myself and my success through their success.
Right. That's a big thing. For so many parents, it's your success that will prove.
So my wife and I, we collected friends. I collect friends. Some people like stamps and coins. I like friends. And my whole life we've become good friends. I collect friends. I like good friends. And amongst our friends, we were privileged to have friends who were remarkable people, special people, who had wonderful kids, who got through the system well. Aruba Daruba, they did marvelously. And they went to all the appropriate yeshivas and got married, did the right shidduchim, and things worked out very well for them. They were our dear friends. In the early days, my wife and I would drive home from their simchas in silence. In silence. And it was a painful experience. And we were grateful for them. It wasn't any jealousy, trust me. We were just delighted and grateful for them. Over the years, we began to see what our children had done for us and to us. What was more fascinating than all was when our friends reflected back to us how deeply they appreciated our friendship, and what we were doing was so moving to them and so inspiring to them. And I think that's what, we don't realize. People watch us. So there are those who may say, who's Russell to be giving drushes on chinuch? I got it. I know that. I accept that. But there are also, everywhere I go, people who are reading the book or listening to the drushes who are telling me, thank you. You're changing our lives. Our own lives. Not just our children. Our own lives. We're becoming, to me those two words, authenticity and vulnerability, are probably the two biggest midas I noticed missing in our world. In our Olam HaTorah. And
people feel if they'll be authentic and vulnerable, their kids won't get into seminary,
Correct.
their yeshivas, no shidduchim, and their standing in the community will...
Yeah, and I think there's a shift happening, grassroots, bottom-up shift happening in our world, where people, young people for sure, this I have no suffix about, the third generation, like my children's age, are craving authenticity
And
vulnerability, and discovering that those two midas free you up in all your avodas Hashem. It changes your relationship to God. It changes your relationship to humanity. And that's where you break through the ego stuff, when you decide to be vulnerable and be honest. This is who I am, with the gifts Hashem gave me, and the challenges Hashem gave me, and I will simply try to do the best with whatever He gave me, what my lot is in this world. And I'll try to do it authentically. When I left home, my father, Shalom, he took me to the airport in Heathrow. I was 18, I went off to yeshiva. My father was not a man of words after the war. And we went to the airport. I remember he told me, check in. I said, I've never been on a plane. I don't know how to do it. So he looked at me and said, well, then why do you think you can go to Israel to yeshiva? Go work it out. So I worked out how to check in. And then he walked me into a bar in Heathrow Airport. Never did this in his life. And we both had a glass of whiskey. He needed it for him, for sure, not for me. I'd never done this in my life to me, ever. And then he walked out, and I followed him. And halfway out of the airport, he turned to me, put his hand on my shoulder. He said to me, Shimon, well, my name was Simon then, my English name. He said, Simon, he said, do what you think is right, and do it with conviction. And then he left. And I collapsed on the floor in Heathrow and cried and cried and cried. I realized my childhood had just come to an end, and he'd summed up everything he wanted to teach me in these two lines. Do what you think is right, and do it with conviction. Vulnerability, authenticity. Try and live like that. And somehow, it's bizarre in a way, but that's what I've tried to do, and I don't think it's hurt me. I mean, we're good friends. Has it hurt me?
To the contrary.
Right? It's...
You're saying this is what liberate the need to be self-conscious and impressive and get validation destroys our psyche.
It destroys us completely.
We are miserable people because of it.
And not only that, you're always worried about the next drasha. How will you look? Like, will the olam be mekabel me? It's like, it's so much better to mess up on the next drasha and then say, I'm so sorry, I was tired. Be authentic. Be vulnerable.
You're saying to be an Eved Hashem is the most liberating psychological experience.
It is. Absolutely. 100%. Anachnu ma. What am I? I don't know. I'm just going to do the best. Lefi koichi, like I said from the Pesikta.
I'm a channel. I'm
a channel. Let me try and show up and do the best I can. And your kids will see that. And there's something magical will come to them. As we saw when our family stabilized, Nishnor stabilized, but Baruch Hashem, or I can say that my wife and I have rov nachas from our children in a very unique way and a special way, watching them in their journeys, their authenticity, their vulnerability, and finding their relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's been very, very heartwarming. Very heartwarming.
You know, it's hard. There's a line from the Baal HaTanya. He once said, Kol inyan ha-chasidus l'shanes teva midaisav. The whole purpose of Chasidus is to work on yourself.
Right.
When you'll ask a lot of, let's call them Hasidish Yidden who grew up with it, very often they'll tell you, for us, what it really means is to fit into the system, to make sure we're perfect families, to make sure our children are filled with Torah and Yireh Shamayim and Midas Hasidiyas. And really, it seems like that this core that you're talking about, both from the Vilna Gaon and the Baal HaTanya, which come from two different schools, it's really, that's all about working on yourself internally.
Right.
How did that get forgotten by so many of us?
It's
emotionally?
I think that rightly so, certainly after the Holocaust, the mandate of Gedolei Yisrael was rebuilding the infrastructure. I think the survival and authenticity of both the Olam HaTorah and the Olam HaChasidus, they put the doggish on the infrastructure. And rightly so. Take a look, we're here. I mean, Kanei Nahar. It's remarkable what happened. Absolutely remarkable. But at the same time, on a grassroots level, I don't think it's a contradiction at all. that at the same time, on an individual level, I see that people resonate to the deeper ideas of my own tikkun amidus is where my relationship of Dov Kabbai lies. That's where it is. Without my tikkun amidus, how will I be humble? How can I be an of? How can I even daven? What is tefillah? The essence of tefillah is humility, that I'm coming on to you, Bari Olam. I'm coming on to you because I can't. Because I can't. So, tikkun amidus, it's, since Hashem says, what people will think of people when they work on their midas. But it's clear to me that this generation and its struggles is taking us to this inevitable place, I think historically, where we're going to be forced to look at an authentic mechanchim. I always quote over a line. My mother, Aleh Shalom, she was a master teacher. We had brothers not alive anymore, worked for the education department in London, and he told us that where we lived, she was number 2 teacher. Ranked number 2. It's a very choshev thing. So I asked her one time, I said, Mommy, what do you think made you number 2 teacher? She said, when I walked into the classroom, like this, when I walked into the classroom every day, I wanted to present myself as a person the Talmidim would want to be. If they want to be me, because I deal with them, act and conduct myself in a way that they want to be me, so then my knowledge is easy to convey to them. They want that knowledge because they want to be me. It was so beyond profound, so amazing.
Wow.
And it's the heart and soul of all chinuch. The mechanech, to be received by the chonech, the one who's to be received. Well, the child has to look at you and see a person they would want to be. And when they do, well, they want your knowledge because they want to associate with you. They want to be connected to you. They value you. So this whole system is such a win-win in terms of dveikas b'yisbarach and avodas Hashem. Having children, there's a famous piece about, stakel b'raisa b'yalma, right? So the Eibishter, why do we have a mitzvah of parents and children? Why don't children drop off trees like apples? Let them fall off trees, and they'll plant themselves in the ground, and they'll grow, and boom, and then they'll walk off and have human beings. What do we need a mitzvah of parents and children for? And the answer is because there's a mitzvah kibbud avayim. There's a mitzvah kibbud avayim. You need the struggle of being mechaved your parents. You need the struggle of being a parent. That's the stakel b'raisa b'yalma for your tikkun neshama. So therefore the Eibishter created the mitzias of parents and children. Because the Torah said that's the way the neshama reaches its tikkun. And without parents and children it wouldn't do it. You know how freeing it is to understand that? It's like, okay, so all the problems caused in families with sibling rivalry, with issues ben ish l'ishtay, and then parents and children with the ego and all these struggles is exactly why the Eibishter gave us the metzias of parents and children, a marriage. Because in that crucible, you're going to have to work on yourself. There is no alternative. And that is the best vehicle for your tikkun amidus in this world. You can't do it anywhere else. You can't do it properly. You can do it, but not to this level. Ben Azai said he's going to do it without, right? I think he was the one chiddush, am I right? In all of
Nafshi chashka b'Torah.
Right. There's one chiddush that he could do this without. Right, am I right? No one else. Everybody else, we need a spouse and children and in-laws and grandparents. And
Rabbi Akiva says, Shali v'shalachem shalahu. All my achievements is her credit.
That's if we would just see that, as I always say, your problems are not in your way. They are your way. If you just see that, then we can bring our authentic, loving self to our children.
Probably it's so difficult for me or anyone to be authentic and vulnerable if I'm operating from my amygdala, from my reptilian brain. I'm just trying to survive. I just need you to think I'm a good guy.
Pause and breathe. Let's start there. Pause and breathe.
So authenticity and vulnerability can only come from a person who has self-love.
Yes, that's right. If you love yourself.
If I'm going to tell you about all my challenges and flaws, and I'm afraid you're going to look at me like a nobody, I'm not going to do that. And that's what a lot of us are doing.
I know
compliment me.
You know my family. You know many of my children. You've seen them, witnessed them. Not for a second do I think that you look down at me in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't even occur to me.
But that's because you don't look down at yourself, probably, right?
Well,
if you had inner shame and self-loathing and you really hated yourself in a very repressed, unconscious level.
So I think I was there at the beginning of this journey. I think I experienced a lot of bitterness, a lot of pain. I imagine I said things that I later came to regret. I had a very eye-opening experience one time when my eldest daughter was probably 14, 15, and this is right at the beginning of our struggles. And I'd heard some news about one of my other children struggling. It was Erev Shabbos. I remember very distinctly sitting at the Shabbos table Friday night, Mara Schreier. I was in a dark hole of self-pity and anger about the world and other people. Hadn't done the work at all yet. And she helped me enormously. She was home that Shabbos. I think she was leaving the house to go out Friday night, just as I had finished the meal fast. I don't think I talked at all. I was so gone and depressed, benched quickly, left my wife with the kids, and I went upstairs to go to bed. I was so ashamed and battered and hurt. On the way up the stairs, I met her coming down the stairs to go out, in her big dekuna, to go out for the night.
Covered Shabbos Kodesh.
Covered Shabbos Kodesh. And she made a comment to me. She doesn't know this, but she made a comment to me that killed me, and that's killed me dead inside, but also opened me up. And I went back to that story, and it was so profound, the gift she gave me. Because as she was leaving me, she made a comment that it doesn't look to me like your Yiddishkeit is working very well for you, is it?
That's a good mashpia.
Whoa.
That's a good Rebbe. You're a good Rebbe.
She left the house. I went to bed and cried and cried.
That was the moment your ego died?
Yes. I had many moments.
That was your moment of Geula, basically.
Yeah. I was many moments like that, where the truth slapped me in the face, and I made a commitment that if the nisyonos in my life stopped me loving Hashem, well, then I never really loved Hashem, and I don't believe in this whole thing. So I better get my act together. And then I'm learning Mesilas Yesharim. I loved Mesilas Yesharim. And then I saw it, and I'd never seen it before. He says, Olam HaTlois. I'd gone through, you lay in the sefer.
Yeah.
And then
Tlois is takvatat.
He says it's Olam HaTlois. Alma de Nisayan. Alma de Shikra. And those words came alive to me. Oh, that's what he meant.
It's actually talking about you.
It's talking about me. This sefer is very relevant to me. These kind of comments from my kids, they were life-altering. I embraced them so deeply. They reoriented me. It was like they moved the rudder of
They
my
taught
ship.
you what Judaism is.
They did.
They brought God back from death to life.
Well, in a way, I was always a nice Jew, and I was sincere, and and I was a masmid, more or less. But I don't think I'd ever had an encounter with God fully. I don't think I had till my kids started struggling. I think till then I was doing everything right and just being a good Jew.
A good robot.
I think I was a good Jew around God. if I can say that. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I was doing all the right things. And makpid nalocha,
You got a good
I
hadas.
wasn't talking ben gavra legavra. I was following Shulchan Aruch. But I think I was following Shulchan Aruch because it made me feel good. I don't think I was following Shulchan Aruch because I wanted to deeply connect to Hashem. And it wasn't till the kids said lines like this that I realized if I wasn't a role model of a relationship with Hashem through the darkness, then they probably never would be.
Wow. So that visceral, real relationship with Hashem was created through the death of the
Correct.
ego that these children brought out.
That's right. I don't think it doesn't happen without some deep patch, some deep adversity. And I wasn't machadish this is Yadua, the call, but it's when it happens to you, it's humbling.
It's Yadua here, it's not Yadua here.
Yes, you have to get it down here.
Das, Adam Yadas Chava.
You have to bring it down there, and the kids brought it there for me. The kids took me there.
Well, what would you say? There's so many, and I know my own life. You have Rabbanim, Rosh Yeshivas, Rebbes, Darshanim. In many ways, they have celebrity status in the Orthodox community, if I could say that. When they walk in, they get a Yamim al Yemei Melech Taisef. People stand up. There's a certain reverence, whatever it is. For them, the vulnerability and authenticity can feel like a death sentence. Not even consciously, not in a malicious way, but even unconsciously. They may not even know it.
Sure.
They may not know how much they're caught up in the shell, in the husk of religion, which is completely not divine. It's almost perpetuating a tradition, as you say, dancing around God. But I can't be vulnerable. I'll give drushes on the parsha. There's an image to uphold, and let's face it, deep down, his trauma or her trauma may be, if somebody really knows who I am, it's all over. And maybe even I'm not allowed to know who I am. I'm not even lying. I don't even know who I am. I can't afford that. I have to be whoever I am. I can't know who I really am. I can't know my darkness.
So I judge no one. I disrespect no one. When I was a young bacher, in Eretz Yisrael, so I went through many, many rebbeim, and kept finding flaws, sort of higher and higher levels, and I found flaws, and it made me crazy. One day, I guess my Hebrew had improved enough. I used to go to the Stiplegon, Zeichsad Kodesh Levacha, and I went to him and I told him this problem, wrote it out, that I keep having a Rebbe, and I keep losing faith in my Rebbe because I find a flaw. So he laughed at me. He said to me, Du suchst Adam Hasholem. Du suchst Adam Hasholem. Meine teure Schwager, das nicht. Es gewinnt Adam Hasholem. And then he yelled at me, he came right up to my face, and he said to me, there's nicht in dem da Adam Hasholem. No such thing. He said to me, the Eitzah, probably, if I had to say, the central best Eitzah I ever received from Gedolim, and I've heard so much in my life, it was this. He said to me, Klai boys, he told me, you have to select many Rebbeim, each who's a Muslim in an area, a Miktsaya. He said you could have Choshe Mishpat one, who's in Yardeh is a different one. You could have in Shalom Bayis one, and in parenting an andere. He said in every miktzah of life, Klai boys, he said, a Rebbe was Muslim in that midah. He said, and then be mevatel yourself. Make sure you mevatel yourself. And look away from the rest. So I went through life, and I recognized all the chashva people around me had chashivas and miktzahs I didn't have. They had it, I didn't. And I tried to be davik to them in the midah that they were gebenched with in this world, and see if I could be shoyef from it. There isn't Adam Hasholem. I don't expect anyone to be perfect. For myself, I found the vulnerability and authenticity was my vehicle. I'm not sure it is for everyone. It may be too hard. I could only say that anyone who tries it, if you're going to do it the whole way. Don't do it partially. It's going to hurt you. You either do it fully or don't do it at all, because they will laugh at you. They will hurt you. But if you do it the whole way, honestly, I don't think, I've never, I receive a lot of emails, you know that, we share frequently, right, and support each other. I receive a lot of emails that people resonate this truth deeply and profoundly and appreciate it enormously. I've never got emails where people appreciate my chachma, my wisdom, you're such a smart person, you're such an encyclopedia of Torah. But I got lots of emails about this.
Your authenticity.
I think that's for me, that's my journey.
I heard from Rabbi Aaron Lapiansky Shlit, I think he shared a story that a Chassidish Shayid once went into the Stipler and there was a shidduch for his son or daughter that somebody was suggesting and, it was serious. And he asked the Stipler, for his perspective and his haskama, and he looked and he said, Wie soll ich wissen? How am I supposed to know? I don't know the bach, I don't know the girl. So he says, I came to you, you're considered one of the... He says, Wie soll ich wissen? I met them, I raised them, I never schmoozed with them, I don't know. They said the guy left and he gave a scream, Euch mir a Rebbe! Euch mir a Rebbe! And he said the Stipler burst out laughing. He says, finally, Emetze was versteht.
Exactly.
Finally.
Exactly. I don't think really in this world, honestly, if you go the whole way, anyone can lose by vulnerability and authenticity, by being honest about who you are. I think people admire you more. You know what they do? When you get authentic and vulnerable, people start feeling safe around you.
They start feeling safe around them.
And when they start feeling safe, they lower their defenses. And when they lower their defenses, you get to know who they really are. You discover they're wonderful people. They're good-hearted.
And you can help them heal.
Yeah.
You can help them heal their own wounds.
It's the key. To me, it's the key.
It's similar, I guess, like parenting. You can actually tune into them rather than defend yourself against them.
Right, exactly.
I have another question. It's a personal question.
Yeah.
A mother shared this with me about you, and I was surprised. And I wanted to ask you about it, because I wanted to understand your thinking. This mother told me she called you up. She lives in the United States, in one of the states. She called you up in Yerushalayim. She has a 14 or 15-year-old daughter, struggling, left the system, left Yiddishkeit, and depressed, anxious, angry, resentful, sleeping all day, on a phone all night, or whatever else she's doing. And she went the regular route. She's a successful person, NYU, psychology department. She got one of the top people in NYU children or teenage psychology department. And they spoke to the girl, etc. She paid a lot of money. They diagnosed this girl, anxiety disorder, defiance disorder, depression. The mother told me, she said, I had to pay $8,000 that you tell me that she has anxiety and defiance. They said, no, we gave you a diagnosis. We gave you a diagnosis. And they wanted that the mother should force her into treatment, and they would give her all these medications, and this whole system that they made for the mother to heal this girl. The mother called Rabbi Shimon Russell, who you may have
heard of him.
Might have heard of him. And he listened for around 15 or 20 minutes, maybe a half an hour. The mother told me the story. And he said to this mother, no, there's trauma. There's terrible, terrible trauma here. And I'm afraid that if you just follow this trajectory, in 6 months she'll be cutting her wrist. What you need more than anything is attachment, more attachment. You have to work on yourself. There's major trauma here. And a lot of these professionals have very developed degrees and they know a lot of textbooks, but they know nothing about trauma or very little about trauma. They don't understand the soul of these kids. They don't. And I want to know how you sitting in Yerushalayim, without being a Navi as far as I know, or having Ruach HaKodesh in the classical sense, you'll forgive me, but I never saw that aspect.
Me neither.
What did you hear that gave you, and you're a fine person, you're not a malicious person, chas v'shalom. What gave you the courage, the resolve, the wisdom to be able to say that to that mother? You never met the daughter. And you said it with conviction, you said it with clarity. What did you hear? What did you hear? What happens in your mind that you say, this is trauma, this has to be diagnosed differently, the treatment is different?
So can I ask you a question first?
Sure.
Was I right? Do you know from this woman if I was right?
So the woman told this to me months later and said it was a miracle.
I was right.
You weren't only right, you were a channel for God's miracle.
Wow.
Because what happened was, it resonated with her. They didn't even mention the word trauma. They just mentioned she's rebellious, she's defiant, she has to come in here, we will discipline her, we'll give her medication, whatever it is. And she said that this kid used to speak about suicide. This kid didn't sleep at night. This kid in the house would curse the parents. And she shifted her entire focus, actually on herself. Just to be loving and kind and embracing. And she spoke to me maybe 6 or 7 months later after the story, and she said her daughter still has a long road ahead, but she doesn't curse her parents. There is a relationship. There are conversations. She comes downstairs. She doesn't come down. She comes downstairs, a little like before the Chet Eitzadas, but she comes downstairs. She smiles. There's a relationship. She's not cutting her wrist. She's not on drugs.
So how?
So I want to know what happened. And this is not an academic question about what you do in your office. I want you to give us, parents and teachers, the mechanism. What did you hear to say, they're misunderstanding this girl. Something else is needed. And I'm sure this happens around 25 times a day. I don't know if your diagnosis is always the same. But you have seen enough and heard enough to trust your instincts.
I know, I've been zeicha to work in the frum world, the Torah world, it's 35 years now. It's a long time. Now, it's true.
How many children did you see? How many, I don't mean, it's a weird question, or how many teenagers did you see? How many did you treat? Do you know?
When I left Lakewood 9 years ago, I took all my files for shredding. And I cried and cried when I saw that the pile of files, I took the files out the folders to shred them because I wasn't going to take them with me. They had delicate, it was locked up till then. And the pile was higher than me on the floor. It was a mountain. I don't know. Thousands and thousands. Can I say one line, just one line, and then we'll tease out the one line. And I think this is what's missed. Ready? Every problem began as a solution. When I listen to a story, especially about a young 14, 15-year-old, and I listen to their behavior, so the problem the parent is describing is the behavior. I'm listening that behavior is a solution. The child is behaving a way to solve a problem. Something is off inside, happening to them, that is so disturbing, possibly suicidal, that this behavior is a way of coping with what's going on inside. Every problem began as a solution. And when you listen through that prism, when you take a look and stand back, before you diagnose that it fits DSM in a certain category, which it might sometimes, is possible. Likely, sometimes. But I'm listening first through this prism from family, nice people telling me a story intelligently. A mother's unfolding a story. I see she's a compassionate, probably nice, sensitive, intelligent woman. Hurting, unfolds this story. I'm already attuning to the fact that her child's behavior probably began as a solution. So the question is, a solution for what? And I've seen that so much of the struggling teen phenomena was directly connected to trauma early. I explained the traumas. This is not the time for it, but there are different types of trauma, and it's almost always usually complex trauma of one sort or another. But when you understand that the problem started as a solution, what was its solution to? Well, then it tracks you to open your mind to think about, what is this behavior a response to? I wonder what happened to her. And that's probably what happened to me when I listened. That's probably what the thought process was, I'm guessing. Because, so-called crazy behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's a reason why she's coming downstairs dressed like, Chava before, the Chet. There's a reason for it. That's a solution to a problem. Let's work out what the problem is. Aruba Daruba is connected to trauma.
Why is this hard for the psychiatric community to grasp? And for many, even psychologists?
I think there's more and more people in our world that are seeing this clearer and clearer. I think in the answer is I really don't know why the secular world has such a hard time, but perhaps they don't understand the uniqueness of our world and our community, and how things that in the secular world would not cause trauma do in the Torah world. They will in the Torah world. And I think they, for those of them that lack that exposure, experience, and knowledge, will misdiagnose. The way it was said over makes me uncomfortable. I don't just like, they don't get it, and I'm comfortable. They obviously know there's a sugya of trauma. But I can tell you, I have relationships with some of the great mechadshim in the field of trauma in the world today. And when I tell them about the nuances of what religious trauma and learning trauma is in our world, they are fascinated because they were unaware of it. It fits, but they wouldn't have seen it, because you have to see, for example, when you're in a class, you're a bacher, and you're sitting you're a good boy, Bad's a good boy. But you know what? For whatever reason, and there can be thousands, the Kop arbeitet nicht. If for some reason the brain is not working properly, I don't know why, and there could be many, many reasons why. What kind of lebedika gehinnom is it for a sincere good kid to sit in class and realize I'm affirmed as being stupid every day? Good kid.
For 10 years.
For 10 years. And my parents sent me back into that. What does that do to my attachments? When I'm affirmed I'm a loser, I'm stupid. When my classmates, 3 of them, were Messiah Shisha Sidra Mishnah for the Bar Mitzvah, and they got that, and I wanted that too when I was 12. I really wanted it too. But it wasn't shaykh for me. And I had to sit with my shame and my embarrassment about myself. I don't know how the secular world could grasp what it is to be.
So this child's brain will cause him to disassociate from the community that causes him such pain?
Could, not will, but could eventually tell him learning, the attempt to learn, evokes deep traumatic reaction in me. Because the standard I have learned to expect of myself is the standard of the best 4 boys in my class. Because you should see what Rebbe's face looks like when they ask.
So why does he have to stop putting on tefillin?
Because Torah comes from God. Torah is connected to
So
religion.
God is a cause for trauma, and my parents threw me into the system, so they're also the cause of
Again,
trauma.
all unconscious.
All unconscious.
No one's thinking this, but that's what's occurring.
So for him to
inside.
come to shul and keep Shabbos tells him basically,
Yeah.
I'm a loser.
And we're still, many of them, by the time in the late teenage years, will say, I will never put my child through what I went through, and so will cut off from Judaism as they've known it. Even at the great, great loss of the culture, of the cholent, of the good side. They won't put their kids through that.
So this boy says, I'm never going to do this to my children,
Correct.
because a part of his brain is telling him this is a life that causes you incessant torture.
Correct. That's exactly what's happening. Not consciously, not his prefrontal cortex, not his thoughtful parts, but the amygdala, the survival parts, are saying to him, connection to this world causes you grief about yourself. It affirms you're a loser. You're stupid. And it's all unconscious.
And the amygdala can't afford to feel like a loser, right?
No,
It
that's his
can't.
job. Hashem gave us that part of the survival part of the brain
To make you
protect
feel
us.
that you're a
Don't feel
Metzias.
like a person. That's right.
So you need to go to the secular world and probably even get a tattoo. That helps. How does the tattoo help me?
Well, okay. So it's all part of the disconnect that I'm affirming. I'm disconnected to this religious
So
world.
the tattoo will,
That is a statement. It's a stempel.
I'm done.
It's a stempel. I'm done.
let my grandmother see.
Correct. Let everyone see I'm out. I'm done with this. I'm done with this. And it's all trauma.
And now the father, who doesn't understand any of this, and he's actually a good guy, he may even be in Kailal for the last 39 years, maybe a genuine Balmidus, may even run a chesed organization at night to help with cancer patients. And he does everything, and he really means well. We're talking about a really good people, and his mother says the whole Tehillim every day for this boy. And he comes home, and the father tells him, that's not how you walk into this house. It's not how you walk into this house. I love you, but it's not how you walk into this house, and I don't even know the Gehenna you're going to get. What just happened to this kid's brain?
He went instantly into survival mode that why can't I walk into my own loving home with my own loving parents, with my own bed, my things, my clothing? Why can't I walk into the warmth of my home, the safety and security of my home, because religion says I'm worthless?
So it distances him even more.
Why would I want anything to do with a religion
And
that tells me that?
And he cuts himself off more from his parents.
Sure. By the way, if you want a classic, brilliant, paradoxical intervention, for the seriously in crisis, we're not talking about your kid who's in 7th grade and doing just fine. We're talking about a kid teenager gone off, fry tattoos. Listen to the lamdas. The father, we help him understand what we just discussed. And he gets it, and he's heartbroken. And we tell him, next time your kid wants a tattoo, take him. Choose it with him, and be there and pay for it. Now let's just understand the lamdas. This is science, by the way. This is the classic paradoxical intervention. The kid's amygdala is looking for the safety of not being frum by putting on a tattoo. The tattoo
Represents safety.
Safety.
The tattoo represents safety.
Safety.
They didn't teach that to us in yeshiva.
they didn't.
That a tattoo represents safety.
In this context,
Of course,
with this child,
of
that's
course.
what it represents.
This is not a call for people to get tattoos
Right,
for
right,
safety.
exactly.
It's an Isser min HaTorah, yeah?
Right, isn't that? Could you say that one more time?
Yeah. It's an Isser min HaTorah. We are talking about stage 4 spiritual cancer.
Right. So comes the father with his beard and pears, and he goes with him into the tattoo parlor, and he helps him get a tattoo. He creates the safety of attachment with his child. What does that do to the question the amygdala has that the amygdala decided religion is unsafe and religious people are unsafe. And here I am in the tattoo parlor getting the stempel that religion and religious people are unsafe. And my father, with his board and payers, is here discussing the exact tattoo and paying for it. What does the amygdala now conclude?
Tiyufta.
To you,
Or kasha. Kasha or kasha.
Kasha,
We have a contradiction.
we have a contradiction.
10 years religion told me I'm a loser, and suddenly my father, with the bard and payas,
The very thing I feel is a stempel that I'm not religious,
and he's with me.
with me,
Imay anaychi b'tzara.
means, the amygdala starts questioning, maybe religion's not so unsafe. I sent someone to do it one time. True story, can't make this stuff up. He's in the massage bar, he's in the tattoo parlor. And the guy sees him, the guy doing the tattoos. And he's halfway through and he stops. There's a Maisa, Shahaya, Kach, Haya. It was in Eretz Yisrael. Let's leave it at that. And the guy doing the tattoo turns to the boy he's doing the tattoo on, and he suddenly sees he's teary. And he says to the boy, if I had a father like yours, I probably would have stayed from. Ma'aseh shahaya kachaya.
Wow. I guess the father heard this.
The boy's from today. Walking away from religion is how that boy became from today. Because his father walked away from it and did the attachment work instead.
The father also probably became from for real.
Maybe, yeah. It's unbelievable. These paradoxical intervention is where we walk a parent through understanding. Okay, deep down, like my kids know, deep down I want them all to be from.
They know it.
They know, how can you argue? I'm a from man. What else would I want? So do we have to discuss every day? No. Laws up. There's something more important to me right now, is that you're healthy. So I'm willing to walk away from Torah mitzvahs. Now I know deep down that if there's any chance of them healing, I have to authentically walk away and put a priority on healthiness, not on Torah mitzvahs.
Yisrael kadmul l'Torah.
Yisrael
Leo
Kol
Anav.
Torah. I have to do that authentically. My kid has to know that in their bena, that my daiga for them is their health and happiness. And what does the amygdala then say? This from man, your father.
Wow. That's where it gets repaired.
That's where it gets repaired.
He doesn't have to choose between Torah and safety.
Not at all. That's where the repair work happens. This is the ultimate paradox. Walk away from religion to get it. As I once said to one of my kids, any God who would make me hate my child is not a God I choose to worship.
And it has to be authentic.
Authentic.
You can't sit and say, if I do this, he'll be frum in 7 months.
Yes. And
That's not going to work.
parents, they ask me, parents frequently ask me, how long is this going to take? So I say to them, I'll tell you precisely. Would you want precise? They say, sure. I'll tell you the exact time. Really? I say, sure. I say, it'll take until you stop asking that question. When that question's gone, that's when the magic might happen.
That's when they'll heal.
They can't heal till then, because they'll schmeck.
They know that it's not real.
They'll schmeck.
They know that the child doesn't come first.
No, they'll know. Absolutely.
He's a hechitimtze nachas.
That's right. And they schmeck it. They schmeck on the disappointment on your face.
That's a transformational moment.
Yes, it is.
And that requires the absolute humility and
Totally.
bittul to Hashem.
But it's so profound when you get there. I want you to survive.
It's like you really not looking to your child for nachas and to do the right thing so that you can feel good about yourself. You let go.
Totally.
It's like it's Hashem's journey.
It's his neshama he put here. And I'm going to do what I can to help it be inspired. Help it grow. It's not about me.
That's the real death of the ego.
Correct.
Ego as in easing God out.
Correct. That's right. Exactly. And that's the moment, when you get to that moment where you stop worrying about that question. You don't have it anymore. It's gone.
Probably something else happens in the process, and that's the shame of the neighbors and the relatives and the kahila is gone.
Totally gone.
Like either you get it or you don't get it, and if you don't, God bless you.
Correct. I've been very honest publicly for many, many years about the troubles and challenges we went through. We had 6 of our children, of 8 children, at some point in the high school years, were not shomer Torah mitzvahs. I have not denied it. I've tried not to take pride in it.
Tried.
I've tried, because I'm so proud of the kids and what they did on their own, and how they found a relationship with Hashem that was real, authentic, that was so incredible. I bring them to Kesher Nafshi, and many of them to talk and expose themselves, and then talk about the journey. This is Klal Yisrael's destiny. This is where we are historically. The Holocaust is over. Had a tachlis, had a purpose. I think what's playing out historically is from the Holocaust. The Holocaust wasn't a blip. It had an impact. Mm-hmm. It had an impact and trauma on human beings for intergenerational trauma. We are now, it's like the internet. We're clearing up that problem from the Holocaust. That's our job. And we're doing it through our children.
You're saying the Holocaust destroyed the self-esteem of the Jewish people?
It traumatized. It was the final trauma of all the traumas, of all the expulsions, of all the galus came the Holocaust. There was nothing that devastating ever in the history of Jewish people. So all the galusim, all the expulsions, 400, Wikipedia has a list, 400 expulsions, right? Of all the times we were tormented and destroyed, and the galus, what it did to us, came the Holocaust like a siyum on all of this. And now we're going to be faced with we're stripped bare. We're stripped bare. Now we got to do the work, the pnimis work. And it's amazing that in this door, come the internet. It can be right at Misaifa Alam at Saifa Alam, right? We do Zoom sessions. The internet world confronts us with the inyani from Midas Yasad. It took us to a place where in the history of the world we were never confronted with this. So we have intergenerational trauma from the Holocaust. Midas Yasad, everything is there, begging and begging for authenticity, vulnerability, connection to Borei Olam, because there's nothing else. It's too big. It's too challenging. It's too great. It's too great. And history is coalesced at this moment in life where we're here and the Eibishter is begging for authentic relationship with us and us with him.
So you brilliantly described succinctly how trauma plays out in the brain of this boy or this girl by sitting 10 years and feeling like a failure and loser. And I assume when there is sexual abuse with it or besides of it, it does the same thing and probably worse, right?
Of course.
So could you tell me what happens to this boy or girl? They were touched inappropriately. They're now 14 or 16.
Sure.
What's now going through their brain?
We have values. There are two, I joke when I say that when I'm gone, they'll say, Omer Rabbi Shimon, al shnei amudim, amda chai yaldenu. I hope they'll say it when I'm gone. What are these 2 amudim? Limud HaTorah v'hatznei alechas. The life of children is completely built around these two yesodis. Limud Torah, v'atznei aleches. Perhaps more by the girls, hatznei aleches younger, later with the boys, shmiras hanayim, shmiras haguf. The ideal in our world is that we teach children hatznei aleches, what it means. It means not just clothing, it means hanhaga, humility, anova, a way of living life, including clothing and how we dress, and including the relationship between husband and wife, intimacy. So we live ideally in a bubble. We float around the world in this bubble of hatznei aleches is how we meant it. What happens? We become a chosen or a kala, and brilliantly, the kala teacher or the chosen teacher expand the bubble of hatznei aleches to incorporate the inyanim of connection through tznius and intimacy to bring children in the world, and it's fully supported, admired, and it's the wonderment of life. Horaya, the same chosen and kala get married, and a few months later they acknowledge they're pregnant and they have a child coming, and there's the greatest delight in the world, supported, moiridik. When a child in our world is molested or touched inappropriately, so they're in a bubble now, a bubble from these inyanim of midas hayesod, sexuality. They're in a bubble where they're now aware of that world, but quite separate to the bubble of hatznei aleches. These bubbles, and in fact they contradict. This poor child is aware of themselves in this new way, with zero support, zero love. On the contrary, a knowledge that lu yitzuya, the world around me, parents, teachers, schools, would know what I'm up to and what I'm now aware of. They would look at me as a goy gama, as a shagets, as a piece of dreck. They throw me out if they knew what I'm involved in, what's happened to me because of the exposure. That's in this bubble. And every time they go to school and hear the completely well-meaning teachers and rebbeim extolling the virtues of hatznei aleches, and that's goyish, and this is Torah and Kedusha, this child wants to bury themselves alive and projects onto themselves that if you, Rebbe, teacher, would know, you would throw me out and humiliate me now. Internally, they throw out and humiliate themselves, and they're gone, they're shut down. There's no support, there's nothing. There's no way on earth there's any positive regard for them from the system. Now they've been abused and become aware of themselves and are connected to this part of their life. They see themselves as Rishoim Gemurim. Rishoim Gemurim. It's not just in the secular world, that same touch, they might not even consider it sexual abuse. They might not. In our world, the damage of it is that it separates them completely from one of the two amudim on which their lives are built. That amud crumbles. And it's their life. You see, hatznei aleches and limud Torah are not things we do, they're who we are. For a child, it's the etzem definition of their metzias. A girl is we punch with non-stop.
So you're saying even if it happened when they were 6 or 7, till they're 15, we won't see anything because they're not aware of their sexuality.
Becomes puberty, they'll be aware of.
They see how different. They see that they're different.
That's right, and it will play itself out, and they brand themselves as Rishoim Gemurim, as evil, bad people, because they have these drives. By the way, this can go further. Even without molestation, it can happen. I've seen it happen to people. I've seen it happen to just through exposure, without anyone ever touching them. They got exposed, nebuch, to something inappropriate, boom, they're gone. Because their lives stand on these two amudim. If one crumbles, they crumble. Like I said, Torah and Hatznei Lechas are not things we do like mezuzah, like lulav, like a sukkah, like a Shabbos meal. They're not mitzvahs. They're mitzias of our life. They're etzem mahus achayim.
What about the following scenario? A 7-year-old or 4-year-old or 10-year-old boy who's molested or touched inappropriately or raped, chas v'shalom, and what's happening is he's being used and exploited. So psychologically, he feels worthless.
Oh, totally.
Now, in yeshiva, he may be doing well. He may be a masmid. He may finish the Shishis Mishnah. But emotionally, he is a shmata beyond. So he doesn't have to leave the frum world because the yeshiva system didn't make him miserable.
Correct.
But he's completely disassociated from himself.
So yes and no. There are those who shut themselves down completely, and they deny, so to speak, anything happened. They implode, not explode. They shut it all down. Many of those pay a bitter price when they get married and have to open it all up naturally, and they cannot.
They shut down emotions.
Gone. All sexual feelings, gone. They get married and they find intimacy abhorrent, disgusting, inappropriate, hurtful. And many get divorced. Everyone pays a price in our world.
What about shutting down not the sexual emotions, but emotional emotions?
That can happen
They
too.
can't love, they can't feel love.
Correct, because that could lead to intimacy. So they shut that down too. I mean, this is a complex conversation of which the tentacles of impact are enormous, enormous. You know, when I say publicly that roughly 20% of all the kids will have this experience, I think I'm still conservative. But I say it because it gives a sense of what we're dealing with.
For many years, people think you and your colleagues were fabricating these numbers.
Correct.
They thought you guys are meshiga, you're obsessed yourselves, and maybe you guys are addicts, and you had to project it on the whole society.
Yeah, people said strange. I was once at a keynote in London, and I was speaking on this subject, and they told me that one of Her Majesty's government's senior professors in this field would be coming to talk. And when he comes, he's on a time. Could I step aside? You know, I was speaking for a 3-4 hour drasha. Could I step aside and let him speak? I said, fine, no problem. Anyway, I was an hour in, and I started off with statistics, and the Olam got very upset. And there was a heated debate with the Rabbanim there about the numbers, and eventually I helped them accept my 20% figure. About an hour in, this Mr. whatever he was from Her Majesty's government arrived, set up his projector and everything, and he threw his first slide up. The first slide was incidents in the United Kingdom of sexual abuse. 20%. The entire Olam burst out laughing. The poor guy stood there like, you just said 20% and we're laughing?
Right.
They were rolling.
How heartless can you be?
I ran over to him quickly to explain to him what had just happened. But it was remarkable. It was my figure. It was the same 20%. You know, these Rabbanim laughing at him. But they
Wow. So that means if you have 10 children in your family, it's likely that 2 of them.
Well, the way I say it is if you have 30 kids in a classroom randomly, right, 6 of those.
Wow. So teachers and principals must be attuned to this. If not, these kids have a hopeless future in our system.
I'm going to accept that as a statement.
That's sexual abuse, but you often talk about emotional neglect, which doesn't seem at all. Sexual abuse, we all agree, is shvichas damim. I mean, anybody who's educated even a little bit knows that it's shvichas damim. Is that true?
Correct.
It's emotional murder.
Correct.
You have seen it again and emotional murder.
Yeah.
And when they start debating,
The V'kom by Naram Ros, right? Yeah.
The only time the Torah gives an emotional comparison
right
from
there.
one
It's
sin to another
amazing,
sin.
no?
No other Aveira like that.
Yeah.
Doesn't say loy signav if you steal. Here,
only
only
here.
this, only case.
Ratzchonesh.
Torah gives a description, and it's Torah Shabbat. It's not a.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Amazing.
I guess for people who one generation will say it's not such a big deal, get over it. It's a form of ritzicha. But there are all those things that are so subtle that most people wouldn't even identify. You once spoke about emotional neglect. a child who grew up in a good home. There was breakfast, lunch, dinner, laundry, physical safety, but there was no attachment.
Correct.
Because the parents themselves are maybe
This
in
is
active trauma.
Probably statistically, I mean, I don't have the money to do it, but I would guess the most widespread form of trauma is emotional neglect.
And you can't even pinpoint.
That's why it's
your
so
father
damaging.
never beat you.
That's why it's so
Your mother
damaging.
never told you that you're a curse to humanity. They were nice people.
Yeah,
They did a nice achsoif on Friday night too.
correct. They just didn't do the scene, the soothed. They never did it. They never saw you. They never noticed who you were. They never reflected back to you. What is chinuch after all? Really chinuch, like the Chavis Talmidim says. Chinuch is about extraction. A melamed, limud, is about installation. A melamed is melamed. He installs yediyah into a child. Chinuch is about extraction, is you take out from him who he is, reflect him back in a way that he can become who is meant to become in this moment.
Chanukah Sabayis, you celebrate him.
You celebrate the potential that lies in this home.
him.
That's what we're doing with a child. We're celebrating the potential that lies in you. I have to see you. I have to know who you are and reflect it back to you in a positive way for you to fulfill your mission in this world. So if I don't see you on the deepest level, you feel emotionally neglected.
So this kid grew up in such a home. He was not seen. He was not soothed. Maybe also compromised in safety or security. But one of these four S's are missing. And grows up, maybe even actually did well in the system to get some love, to get some validation. Maybe if he has a good head, it works. Or she was a good Bas Yisrael with Midas Tovas and Sneas and Chesed. And maybe that's their way of getting validation.
Yeah.
How does their trauma develop?
So over the years, they realize I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. I have hard times with choices, decisions, yeshivas, life. Shidduchim is a nightmare.
There's no self-love.
I'm not sure who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know how I feel. All I know is I feel empty and lonely. Terribly, terribly lonely. I know I'm a good person. That I do know. But I don't understand why I feel so disconnected from everybody else. I can walk into a room full of people and I'll feel terribly alone. In fact, I feel most alone in a room with people.
So there's a lot of social anxiety.
Terrible. You go to a chasna.
A chasna is
it
miserable.
Miserable.
Because now you have to deal with 300 people's
Sure.
energy and you have no core.
I don't know how to evaluate my feelings to know if they're right or wrong. Because no one told me. When you're emotionally neglected, like a parent, a child should say, go back to the sitzes. I hate my sitzes. So I would smile when my kid said that. I said, I find that fascinating. You hate your kid's sitzes. Tell me more. And the kid tells you, and you begin to get the story why he hates his sitzes.
Mickey Mouse.
Right, Mickey Mouse, torn, whatever it was, something, and you take care of it. And what does the child really know? Someone cared how I feel. They didn't care to make sure for their ego, I go out with a pair of sitzes on. They cared how I feel.
So they trust their own feelings.
So they learn to trust their own feelings.
So when I come into a chasana and I'm 29 or 39, I trust my feelings.
I trust my feelings. In other words, I know who I am. And when I feel something, if my parent looks at me when I say I'm sad, imagine this thing. You come home and say, I'm really angry with my Rebbe. And a parent says, you shouldn't feel like that. What on earth does that even mean?
You shouldn't feel like
Sorry,
that.
Tati. Apparently I have a button somewhere I could press that could stop me feeling that way. Well, if you tell me where the button is, I'll do it. Can you help?
So actually the amygdala probably has such a button and they stop feeling.
They stop feeling completely.
They actually listen to their father.
Don't trust myself to feel.
So
I
they
know
press that button not to
That's
feel
right.
anger anymore.
When a child says, I hate my feeling, that whatever the feeling is, we're meant to honor it and show curiosity and interest. Tell me more, Shefala. I'd like to understand that feeling better. That's all. And you know what? 99 times out of 100, a child will fix the problem themselves because you showed interest in how they feel. That's it.
So Rabbi Shimon, I walk into a mitzvah, there's 150 people, half of them know me, they come to say Shalom Aleichem, and I am miserable inside. I'm like, Rebbeinu Shalom, get me out of this place. Nothing happened, there's no danger. Actually, they may even be happy that I'm there, but I am miserable. I guess because I have no core? Because I hate myself?
No.
Because I think everybody's judging me? Like, what just happened?
That's it. There's many, many reasons. I walk in uncomfortable with how I feel. I'm walking in feeling nervous. Will I be accepted? Will I be embraced? Will there be people I know? Will there be a seat for me to sit in? Will the food be food I can eat? Will there be mechabed me? People walk in wondering, will I get a covered?
Bracha chrita. Bracha chrita.
Something. Will I be noticed? And if I had parents who said to me, every time I said, I don't feel good, I'm angry, I'm sad, they said, tell me more, I'm so interested. I learned to trust those feelings mean something and they're valuable feelings that are going on inside me. So I'm aware of my feelings and they actually help me guide my life. So I say to myself, don't be an idiot. There's 4,000 Gedolei Yisrael here. You're not getting a bracha. Let it go. Enjoy the chasna. And you feel it and you laugh at yourself and you let it go. But if you were never honored by someone being interested in your feelings, that feeling ridges away from you and becomes an affirmation of my worthlessness. Whereas I would simply say, Russell, grow up. There's a lot of chashuva people here. You're not getting a bracha. Don't worry about it. And then you laugh.
Enjoy the sushi.
Enjoy the sushi. And you go and enjoy the thing. Right? A person wants to go and take a piece of sushi. There's a perfect example. It's a beautiful, shmorgan. But I'm chashuv, can I take a piece of sushi? It doesn't look good eating in public, what will they think of me? But I want a piece of sushi. And now I walk away wound up in knots because I didn't know how to handle that feeling. Whereas if your feelings were attended to when you're a child, you walk in, you say, I'm actually hungry. I'm not sure if I'm staying till late. I'm going to eat a piece of sushi. And if someone thinks less of me because I had sushi, that's their problem. But I work that through rather than sit there not eating and mad with myself and life because I couldn't take a piece of sushi because I felt embarrassed. Not because, if I don't want it, don't eat it. And if you feel it's not dignified, so don't eat. It's not dignified. Eat privately. But if you really want it and you're just all confused about that feeling, something's wrong. Something's wrong. It needs attention.
So now I start imagining what everyone else is thinking about me, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So this is the type of traumas that play themselves out from emotional neglect.
Sure. There's thousands.
But internally, I am a miserable person. That's the bottom line.
Happy, lonely, sad, feel disconnected, and most of all, have a horrible time making decisions. Horrible. I'm always confused. Look, every decision, what does the word mean? If I have a decision to make, that meant I had a choice. Philosophically. Otherwise, there's no decision. I don't have a decision about breathing because I breathe. If maybe I was underwater, I'd have a decision to make. Do I get back up or do I enjoy the coral reef? What do I do? That's a decision because I have a choice. When you have no choice, there is no decision. So most of life is about decisions and making choices. And if you weren't taught to trust yourself, if you didn't have a father who, when the child said, shall I go and play, with my friends, or should I do my homework? And the father said, it's a great choice. I see your problem. That's a hard one. Your friends just called you out, but you got the homework to do. That's a tough one. I feel for you. What shall I do? Well, close your eyes a moment and just see if you can just hear a voice telling you what the right thing is. Fine. It's that simple. But you got to be interested. You got to be interested in listening to the feelings, respecting the feelings, so that your feelings, when you grow up, become a healthy adult, guide you in life. Your feelings tell you stuff, and it's so valuable about what's good and bad and right and wrong. But if you didn't have that validation for your feelings, if you were emotionally neglected, So you become an adult. You're a fine person. Nothing wrong with you. But internally, you have a hard time with decisions. You feel very lonely. You feel very disconnected to yourself. And you have no finger to put it on. You go to therapy. Tell me about your parents. They were great people.
In fact, they were considered the best in the community.
Yeah, but really what was missing was I wasn't connected with emotionally. Emotional neglect, because it fails to have a specific event.
There's no story.
There's no story. It's so painful because you're left alone. You actually think you're crazy because everyone else tells you nice things about your parents.
And then when you become a father or a mother, there's no way you can show up for them.
You don't know how to because it was never done to you. You have to learn it. You know, the beautiful
So you have to repress their emotions, just like you did your own.
You could read Raising a Loving Family. You know, that is an option. You know, the beautiful.
But how does your nervous system read Raising a Loving Family? How do you get your nervous system to heal?
Pause and breathe, then read.
So this requires a tremendous amount of healing, of going back to the pain of being unseen in life.
Yes.
There's a lot of grief work probably too.
Correct.
You have to grieve.
You have to grieve. You have to, like I said, I like to put it into a historical perspective that the Eibishter created a world for us that La Human Kiyasuba never existed before. With the intergenerational trauma and then the internet, and you put the two together, the world of our children is so beyond challenging. And that, I think, at least the way I try to share it with my friends and clients, is that challenges us to grow and become so much healthier people so that we can help the children.
You're saying our avodas Hashem today cannot be external and rely on any external circumstances.
Alone, no.
We need to completely be internal.
Correct. It's really
because the
inside.
external circumstances are chaotic.
You have to enjoy the moment when you're davening Shemoneh Esrei, you know, in a new shul somewhere, you're the speaker, for example, and people are watching you, and you recognize I'm davening better than I usually do. You got to enjoy that moment of awareness and have a good laugh at yourself so you can remind yourself when you go home to daven like this. It's got to be enjoyable. The awareness.
That's part of vulnerability.
Yeah, it's got to be enjoyable when you see these flaws, these little things in yourself, because there's such valuable roadmaps to your own tikkun when you see them.
So I guess it's really not being afraid of all the different parts in ourselves.
Yeah, that's right.
Including the part that's davening nicely only because everyone is looking at me.
Absolutely. That's defending me too. It's only there to
defend me, trying to make sure that I remain a celebrity.
There you go, exactly.
After
so if I can
davening.
just go home and daven that way, which I've tried, you know, to train myself to do.
I guess it's also challenging not to delegitimize myself, not to say I'm a fake and a fraud and a phony and my whole davening is a game.
Because it's just a part of
You're saying there's parts of us, huh?
Sure. This is the beauty of IFS work. You know, it's so special.
So you're saying the amygdala says, make sure you daven a nice Shemoneh Esrei so that the Olam respects you.
There you go.
And that's what its job is, right? It's almost like, thank you, amygdala.
Yeah, it's protecting you.
So let me close my eyes now and really do this dvekas, which is all fake.
That's what you say to the amygdala. Would it be okay with you if we did this at home too? When no one's looking, would that be okay? Can we do that too? Because I think this is pretty chashuv.
So it's almost like you're saying that real healing happens when we start laughing with our trauma, when we start having a good time together.
Absolutely. When you recognize there's no part of me that's bad, they're all there to help me. Like I said, every problem began with a solution, including the parts I developed within myself. They were all there as a solution to help me. Stop being afraid of them, brace them, be curious about them, reflect upon them, and then see if you really need them anymore.
Is it true that, can I say accurately, that after 35 years of meeting thousands and thousands of children, parents, siblings, and having very intimate conversations, they don't come to talk to you about where to go on a Pesach program. That's not where they come to you. They come to you to talk about difficult things. Have you ever come out of a meeting or out of a series of therapy and say, this is a bad child? This is an evil child. This is a chay. They used to call us in yeshiva chayera. A chayera.
Not,
You never had that
not
experience,
once,
huh?
Not once.
So that
ever.
tells us that the Yetzer Hara that we're talking about is really a survival mechanism. And because of that, I become aggressive, confrontational, self-centered, narcissistic, promiscuous. It's really trauma.
Absolutely.
It's really trauma.
Absolutely. I see it, the trauma is there. It locks us up. And Louis Tzio, there's no trauma there. We act differently. We behave differently. I took the Shaila to Brown Leib years and years and years ago, about two boys. They both don't get out of bed in the morning for Shachris, Bachim. One is struggling with his taivas all night, and he's sabrachan in the morning, can't get out of bed. And the other one has an anxiety disorder. I asked, which is which? How do I know which is which? So Shiva said, Manef Kamina. I says, huge. Because if it's Midas Ros, it needs Musa.
Got to scream at him.
You gotta yell at him, you gotta do Musa Techacha. But if it's Chale Nefesh, if he's not well, he needs Tipurufui.
And compassion.
And compassion, of course. So he thought for a few minutes. He said, well, do both. I said, Chas v'shalom. I said, Chas v'shalom if you do both. If you do Tipurufui on someone Midas Ros, nothing happens. But if you do Musa on someone's Chale Nefesh, you're a mazik.
You make him worse.
It'd make him worse. So Shiva laughed, he smiled, thought for a few minutes. And then he said to me, unless you know for sure it's Midas Ros, you have to assume, in this generation, you have to assume it's Chole Nefesh. There's something going on, go treat it. He said, if you and your colleagues have all treated it, you tried so hard and you can't, maybe then you can consider Midas Ros. And that stood well by me, my whole career.
Sveika l'chumra.
Sveika l'chumra, yeah. And I saw it's true, because Harai, you treat it, and you have a Zizkite sitting in front of you, who cries, and they themselves take on the arbit. They themselves recognize, I have a job to do on myself. You have to say it anyway. You don't need techacha. You need safety. When you have safety, my experience in the Olam HaTorah is I've met with the finest, nicest, best human beings on earth. Just amazing people. And when you create safety for them, everything comes out. And they want to work on themselves. You don't have to say a word. You don't have to give techacha. You don't have to give them any musa. Because as they feel safe, they cry. And they say, but I got to fix this. It's not nice.
So this is counterintuitive for so many parents, principals, teachers, Rosh Yeshivas, Magid Shiurim, Mechanchos, that basically what you're saying, if I'm a principal, if I'm a Yeshiva, and you come into my yeshiva or my school, before looking at me as the responsible one for creating a new generation of Ga'onim, Talmidei Chachamim, Frumim, Meidlach, Erlich Yidin, with discipline and rules, the first obligation is make those kids feel safe.
Yeah.
That's the first.
If you make a child feel safe, they open themselves up. That's the same L'Shevis Yisrael. We've gone back there again. When they feel safe, that your daiga for them is they should be healthy in body and mind, happy, capable of self-love and loving others. That's safety. When you created that safety.
But so often people in these positions will say, I need them to know authority.
So
I need them to know authority. Stop hacking Chinuch.
I understand that for many of them, you've got a dual job. You have a job of a school to run. And that's more complicated than just working with an individual. But I see no heta at all for the angry face. Like if you're going to say to them, Shefla, I'm so sorry you got a detention. I feel bad. Let the detention be the thing that wakes him up to realize I need to work on myself, not your angry face. Because your angry face can be the angry face that drives him away from God. Because you're the other Richter for.
But what if the detention makes him feel like a bigger loser? I've been getting detention for 10 years, and that also drives him away from God.
So go sit down with him and say, Shefla, I feel really bad you got this detention. I'm going to sit in detention with you together, and we're going to talk over how we can help you not get another detention.
So he'll feel safe.
That's like the father in the tattoo parlor.
Wow. So the Rosh Yeshiva who would have made him feel unsafe is with him.
I'm with you.
I'm with you.
I'm here to help you. I found that you needed detention. You came late, so you did what you did. Oh, but I'm here with you. How can we help you not get another
You once
one?
shared in one of our sessions that if you were a principal and a boy came late to school or a girl came late to school, they came 3 o'clock in the afternoon instead of 8:45 in the morning, you would call them into the office and say, wow, if you came 3 o'clock, this must be a hard day. And you showed up.
And I'm so proud of you.
Here's a Danish. Or as a mother wrote, you should say, here's some healthy food, whatever it is.
It's
But-
broccoli.
Here's the broccoli. And wow. We usually, it's $20 knas, $10 knas, whatever it
You
is.
just created safety and the kid starts crying and you say, tell me what's going on, Schäferle.
But people wrote an email to you, you're destroying schools. So everyone is going to come late. Everyone will come 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's how I'm going to be the best school in Lakewood?
So,
in O'Barron Park?
Baruch Hashem, I never said this publicly till I had tried it out with my friends who were menalim of schools and did it and discovered how it worked. It wasn't till then I said it publicly. I said al svara to them because they asked me for guidance. But when we saw it work, that was when I said it publicly. It works.
So it actually helped them all come earlier. It helped the children.
Everyone, they feel safer. The nature of kids is to be good. Their nature is to be good and please us.
So we are so afraid that these messages will destroy structure. They will destroy our schools. They will destroy our home. You're saying, trust your Yiddishkeit a little more.
Trust it.
God did not try to give us an evil system that everybody wants to run away from.
Exactly. It's a beautiful system, and we can teach them, and they can learn.
You're saying when they feel safe, they'll want to come to school.
Absolutely.
They'll want to learn.
There's no kid, every kid will want to come to school if he feels safe. Our job is to create that safety.
So very often, in the name of trying to be educators, we are actually distancing them
That could happen.
from the goal.
That could definitely happen.
Because we are using Yiddishkeit or any other disciplinary method to create a lack of safety, which
right.
actually throws them away.
Right.
So in our lack of real awareness, in the name of Yiddishkeit, we're doing everything.
Again, not
Maliciously. Not maliciously.
It's just thoughtless.
Actually with good intentions.
With great intentions.
Yes.
But not realizing that in this generation, again, I don't want to speak on behalf of Friedrich, but in this generation, the primary need of a child is respect and safety.
Respecting the child.
Yes, they feel respected.
And the child feeling
they feel
safe.
are the primary needs of all children in this generation.
So that their brain can
Stays
develop.
online, otherwise it's offline. They're in survival mode. The brain's offline and they can't learn. They can't do anything.
The brain
wanna
is
get
just
away from
saying,
it.
I need to survive.
Get out of here. The brain's saying, get out of here. Either dissociate or physically don't come to school.
Or check out.
Check out. That's the dissociation. That's right. Our job is to provide a feeling that the child feels respected and safe.
So we used to look at children, I guess, more without seeing what's inside of them. As long as you're in class, you showed up 9 o'clock, you don't put your head down and you point, it means I'm a success story.
Correct.
And you're saying this may be a catastrophe.
Yeah,
Because this kid may physically be there, but their amygdala has
and in this world,
shut down.
the world we're living in now, where the ghetto walls are certainly down, gone. The premise of my book was about the fact that the ghetto walls are down. They're down. We can't shelter alone anymore. So the answer to all of the chinuch issues is connection, that we have a connection with the child, because if we allow disconnection, then trust me, there's a world out there that they will use to fill their minds and their hearts while they're disconnected from our world. They'll go to the secular world, of course. So the only real option for us is both the shmira of filters and all the rest of the good things that we provide, and the walls and the discipline and the rules and the structure. And we must, that's all the outside. The inside is connection. The kids feel connected, and the way you connect is by making them feel respected and making them feel safe. Then they open up and they tell you everything because they can trust you, and then you can help them. They say, come to you and say, Rebbe, I have a problem. I found one appliance in my house where I can, it was really just a thing for the alarm system, with pictures of the cameras outside, but I found I can get onto the internet through it. Help me. I don't want to tell my father he'll be so angry with me, but I'm so struggling. Yes, a child will tell you that when you make him feel respected for telling you and safe to tell you.
In all your years of practice, can you think of a piece of advice you gave? It was counterintuitive. People thought you were crazy. Maybe you even thought you were crazy. But somehow it worked.
The first one I ever did, and I want to remark to him, if I say this publicly, don't try this at home. This is a very thoughtful, specific, not generic, not that anyone else should ever do this without consulting with your own professional. A unique circumstance. I had a 15-year-old boy, was off, fry, gone, clearly an abuse victim, I knew it. And he'd taken to smoking marijuana, and a few kids in his community had died from laced marijuana. They died. They OD'd and died on laced marijuana. And this father came to me panicking. He was a friend with one of these kids who died, got his marijuana in the same place. He was terrified and he couldn't stop. He had no relationship. The kid holed up all night long. The usual story. I suggested to the father to go to his son and tell his son, I'm going to buy your marijuana. I'm going to get you good quality marijuana that won't kill you. I'm terrified you could die. But we're going to do it on one tonight. That once a week, Motzi Shabbos, we're going to pull the lights off in your room, and you're going to smoke this marijuana I gave you. I told him make sure the windows are open so you don't get hotboxed. And I'm going to sit in the room with you and listen in the dark, and I'd like to understand your hurt, your pain. Can we do that? And I'll pay for your marijuana. And the kid said yes. And they did it for about a year or two. He sat there listening. Motzi Shabbos was crying, actually. He told me. He sat there listening and crying to his son's pain. That son today is married from Erlich and has told me many times when I bump into him, you saved my life. It was the connection. And there was no other way I could connect. I tried everything. Nothing worked. So counterintuitive to tell a father to go and buy marijuana, you bet. That's crazy. That's why I said, please don't take this story.
But without the connection, this boy would never heal.
It would never heal, and I knew the connection is what we were after, the hole in the heart. And he gave up the marijuana.
So you can take away all the marijuana, but if you don't heal that connection,
he'll just go to
he'll
cocaine,
find somebody else.
Heroin, cocaine.
He'll go to cocaine.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't understand that. They focus on the marijuana.
Yeah.
I'm giving my kid marijuana. Am I crazy?
Crazy. Which, of course,
it is crazy.
To do.
But you're saying you're dealing with a kid who's emotionally...
He was already abused.
He's emotionally dead.
And it actually brought the connection.
The marijuana brought the connection.
I actually told the kid, I remember the story now. I asked his rishus to take this story to his father. He said, you're crazy, Russell, you're crazy. My father will never be masculine. I said, that's not your problem, that's my problem. I'm asking you rishus. I asked the kid rishus, can I go to your father? Because we were all scared because some other kids had died of laced marijuana.
So this is a case where Moshe Rabbeinu breaks the luchas and Hashem says, Yashikaycha chashashi. And Rashi says it was to save the Jews. There would be no Jews left. Yeah, we can have complete luchas, but there's no Jews to give it to. Hashem says, Yashikaycha chashashi. That's how I would summarize what you're teaching. And that's how the whole Torah ends. La'enei kol Yisrael, Rashi says.
Again,
the end.
Say again to anyone watching, you can't take any of these stories and say,
of course.
Russell said we have to.
Russell said we should all be doing marijuana. Instead of the Kiddush, we're going to do marijuana. No challah.
I just hope everyone understands.
Of course.
I've never had to do it again.
Right.
But I would, you understand, in a thoughtful way.
Of course.
It can change your life.
And l'shem shamayim.
And it was about connection. It wasn't about marijuana. It was about facilitating connection, which worked beautifully.
So when a father or mother asks you, my daughter wants a smartphone. She has it. She's on it all night. She watches horrible things. I want to take it away. If I take it away, I did. She curses me, hates me.
And she gets herself one anyway, another one.
That she doesn't tell me.
But she for sure does.
Yeah.
Let's assume she does.
And she hates me. I say, at least let me put filters so you can only go to a Jewish website. No. So now I have a choice. Am I giving her a device that is destroying her brain, her neshama, and her life, just so I could be or not, and I'm a good mom?
Yeah. So this question, I need to, let's isolate, let's make a hechetimsa so that we can not have to deal with other problems. This is the only child in the house. That's the first hechetimsa. I want to be able to answer the question I can't.
For the child. Yeah.
For this child. It's the only one in the house. The parents have tried and have a terrible relationship with the child. The child isolates, locks in their room, goes out at night, does whatever they want, don't dress sanua, who knows what they're doing with boys and everything else, and they're watching terrible things, pornography on this smartphone, but there's nothing the parents can do to stop it. Nothing. They've tried everything imaginable. I've gone through it with them. I've listened to them for hours. They've tried everything from nice to tough to kind, everything. So I'm going to say something. Pornography is terrible. Pornography is a disaster. Pornography conditions people, young people especially, to believe that this is what intimacy looks like. It creates neural pathways. Forget about the kedusha inyanim, less obvious, but it creates neural pathways that make a person believe this is where satisfaction is. And in a real home, when you get married, this doesn't happen. This stuff doesn't happen, which leaves the brain craving something that they will never get and feeling they're missing for the rest of their lives. Aside from the kedusha, it is, in psychology, it's a disaster. So we don't have to say how bad it is. Many children, unfortunately, have died, OD'd, or committed suicide from the destroyed relationship with their parents. No kid ever suicided or OD'd because they watched pornography. Losing a relationship with your parents is worse. So if everything else has failed,
Wow.
and you tried everything you could imagine, and everything in the world, which you should, because pornography is schrecklich, and it's destructive, and you've tried everything in the world, and it failed, and trying more will destroy your relationship with your kid, give him the smartphone.
Wow.
Because this is pikuach nefesh, that's not.
Wow. So that's so vital in our times to understand. If my enforcement of tznius and halach is coming at the expense of connection,
Destroys your relationship.
It's
I don't mean tonight and tomorrow morning they love you.
Right.
I mean permanently.
right, then ultimately you're making them frum for 10 minutes, but you're losing the child.
Absolutely. You're
losing the neshama.
It's just a fantasy.
So you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose your child and your Torah.
And when you give it to them and say, Shefela, this is terrible, I want to tell you why. I want to tell you why I don't want to give it to you, but I'm giving it to you. Here, hold it. Hold it in your hand. Here, you can hold my smartphone. You got it? And you give them the smartphone. You got it? It's yours. In a moment, you're going to turn it on. It's yours. And it's unfiltered. They look at you as if you're crazy. You probably look at me as if I'm crazy. But I'm telling you again, I'm not taking it away from you. All I want to do is tell you why I think this thing is so dangerous to you. Do you know they listen to you then?
Wow.
And 99 times out of 100 will come back to you and say, I need a filter. I need a filter. I can't do this. They come back to you.
Because you created safety.
Because you created safety and connection. You have to put it in their hand first. Otherwise, they're still fighting you and they don't hear you.
It's yours.
It's yours. Now can we talk about it before you turn it on?
It's all about happy and healthy as a prerequisite for religion.
That's where we started today, and that's my feeling overall, is the primary job we have, the dual job we have, is creating a healthy human being and be mechanech liberatory mitzvahs. Dual job. If there's a conflict, don't compromise being a healthy person.
I guess so many of us grew up without safety. that we learn to cope without it.
Right.
So we tell ourselves it's not important. We don't even know that it's important.
Correct. And now we're watching the next generation getting hurt from that.
And I guess they're showing us that it's important.
Yeah. Yep. And all this is this generation. Why they made this happen now and not previously, I have no clue. But this is what we're dealing with. This is the world we have, and this is how we can make the maximum potential develop it out of our
Well,
children.
maybe if the Geula is coming and our Avodas Hashem needs to permeate us in our totality,
Correct.
this is the only way.
Correct.
If it's internal, it's deep, it's pnimi, like you said before,
Correct.
pnimi is not chitzonius.
That's right. And it has to
If
be.
the whole world is going to be healed with the presence of Hashem, how can that happen without that internal relationship?
Correct.
It's not anymore just about behavior.
Correct. I look at this as incredibly historical times for us. Midas Yesod is finally being confronted in our face after all the generations.
You're saying our sexuality is going to have to be worked out.
It has to be. It's
Because there's
there.
too
You
many
can't run away from
temptations.
it. It's right there, front and center in the world, in a way it never was before. And the Holocaust trauma and other traumas that are happening to us is precisely because of trying to rebuild the system, causing more trauma. We have
And also maybe I'm just thinking, we talk about Klal Yisrael and Achdus and the healing of Klal Yisrael. When we go to this level of conversation, the differentiations between communities pretty much dissolves.
Correct. Totally.
Vulnerability and authenticity,
Everyone needs it.
everybody becomes one.
Correct.
We all cry.
Machlekes goes away.
So the great differentiations between communities can only exist when we're on the peripheral,
Well, when we're hiding.
When we're
When we
hiding.
don't feel safe. I don't feel safe with that community or that community. These Jews make me feel
You trigger
unsafe.
me.
Yeah,
You're not part of my color war team.
that's right. But when we let that go, we let go of some of those barriers. We start embracing. Like, I understand that someone expresses himself with Chabad, in the Litvische Mahalach, and he's square and he's Satmar, and that's beautiful. I said, because Ha bedrachim Lashem. But to step over the next step and say, but don't forget, I'm right. And you guys are wrong. That's crazy. That's completely crazy. What I can say is this works for me. And it brings me close to Hashem. And that works for you and brings you close to Hashem. And that works for him and brings him close to Hashem. So let's all applaud each other and praise and be grateful that Satmar exists and Skver exists and Lubavitch and the Litvish. And let's be glad we all, I'll leave you with this thought because I think we got to wrap soon. I had a vort I once said to my Rebbe Tzal. And when we had our Gesegenzach, he asked me to remind him. He said to me at the time, Shimon, this is the best thought you ever told me. We were discussing how to survive in today's world. How does a Yid survive? So I told him like this. I said, in your brain, you need to be a Litvish Lamdan. You got to knack Torah. You got to make a chakira. You got to see right and wrong and true and false. Kveidus adas. Understand the sugya. That's in your brain. In your heart, you got to be half Hasidish and half Sfardi. Because the Hasidim, they lig in Kedusha. And the Sfardim have Messiah and Tamimus. That's in your heart. Inside, you need to be a little bit Chabad, because the Maisa, they care about every Jew on the face of this earth. I don't know anyone else who does. A little bit Breslov, because Nachman touches things that no one else touches, and a little bit Kalbach, because a Yid has to sing. Yid has to sing. I said, take all that and put it in a Yekisha body so we can respect people's time. So when they say a chasna is 7:30, you show up 7:30, not 9 o'clock. And if you have all those, you can probably survive a Yid in this world. Mashgiach, when I said it to him, got up, came around, gave me a kiss. He said, Shimon, it's the best word you ever said.
Wow. Okay, I guess that sums you up. Grew up in England.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Three
you have
passports.
you have the English tradition
Yeah, exactly.
of showing up on time, I believe.
That's correct.
You write in your book that you finished the cycle of Daf Yomi by showing up on time for
Yes,
Simchas.
yes,
So you got to
exactly.
learn the Blad Gemara before the Chassan and Kala shows up
100%,
to the
it was
wedding.
Perfect.
Wow. We have no words to thank you for your wisdom, for your authenticity, and for your vulnerability.
Thank you.
For making us better people, better parents, better educators, better Jews.
Thank you.
I want everybody to notice that I asked Rabbi Shimon some questions that were personal, and you weren't triggered. You paused, you breathed.
Yeah, it's just...
You didn't respond from a defensive
It's
place.
the heckle Hashem gave me. Why should I be triggered? It's what Hashem gave
We
me.
can all learn from that. And if you haven't yet read Rabbi Shimon's new book, Raising a Loving Family, it's beautiful, it's authentic, it's vulnerable, and it's helpful. And Kesher Nafshi is a miracle organization. We all know that.
Very much so.
And we have been at many of them. Rabbi Shimon goes to every one of them because he's its founder. I've had the privilege of being at many of them, and to be able to see hundreds and hundreds of parents
Amazing.
from
Amazing.
all demographics. And it's probably one of the most honest places you'll be at in terms of the
It's
vulnerability.
like open heart surgery
Yeah.
for the weekend.
And there's no judgment, you know. You have streimlach, and you have hats, and you have different types of yarmulkes and different types of nuschayas. And everybody comes together. And I think what when we transcend the ego,
Correct.
there's automatically achdus, right?
Absolutely.
Because the neshama
Absolutely.
is
It's
one.
the most beautiful, beautiful Shabbosos.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
my
Thank you.
friend. Take care, my friend.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.